Good morning and welcome to the King's Report this Thursday, May 18th, 2017, 8th year of Chungi, fourth month, and 23rd day by the heavenly calendar. I'm your host, Seongji Shomun, the second king of Cheongguk, and here we are in the Cheongguk Palace, broadcasting live. The sun is still not up yet. Let's go first to Tim, the agent elder, for our AccuWeather forecast. Tim.
Yes, the sun is not up yet. It'll be rising in about a half hour. Maybe that's a good thing. It's 63 degrees now, but say goodbye to the 60s, 70s, even the 80s as the sun climbs and begins to warm up. We're going up to 92 today. Yes, it'll be a hot, humid day. The good thing is there's good news. There's a breeze. There's going to be a breeze. West-southwest winds at 60 miles an hour, gusts to 25. So that, I think, will be maybe taking a bit of the edge off the heat. But then tomorrow, though, we'll get some cold air coming in from eastern Canada, and that'll bring it back down to the high, back down to 81. And then by Sunday, actually, we should be back into the 60s for a high.
Yay. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Tim, for that very terrible report. Yeah, yesterday was like 91.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, it was unbelievably hot. And this morning was sweltering hot.
Yes.
Right before we came out and were preparing. I was sweating just putting on a suit. Oh my gosh. But thank goodness they turned on the AC today. So if you hear a little buzz in the background in the broadcast today, understand that it is 100 degrees in here. Especially when we have the sun and the sun starts peeking through those windows. Boy, oh boy, it gets real warm in here real quick. All right, Tim, thank you for that report today. Everybody be careful of colds. I mean, this heavy fluctuation in temperature, and also the fluctuations of inside and outside temperatures, insides being air conditioned and outside being very, very hot, is what gets you a cold and or pneumonia. You can get pneumonia that way. And so everybody watch out for that and make sure you are thermoregulating properly. Like I was just getting a little chilly because the AC on, but I know I'm going to get hotter as the sun comes up. So I just threw on this little thing over on my legs to thermoregulate here. And just make sure you are controlling and protecting your CBT or core body temperature. Let's go now to our Rima today, which is from Psalm 137. It's entitled Longing for Zion in a Foreign Land. By the rivers of Babylon, so they're here in captivity as slaves in Babylon. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, yea, we wept, when we remembered Zion. We hung our harps upon the willows in the midst of it. For there those who carried us away, captive, asked of us a song. And those who plundered us requested mirth, saying, Sing us one of the songs of Zion. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its skill. If I do not remember you, let my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. If I do not exalt Jerusalem above my chief joy. Amen. With all this insanity now and the lunatic leftists, communist left, totalitarian left, destroy Trump at all costs media, and the Rhino Republican traitors are working now openly calling for the impeachment of President Trump. We'll look at more of that a little later. And we talked about the Arab Spring and also the American Spring, which is, of course, erupting into more and more violence. And now a Democratic poll out saying 48% of the American population wants to see Trump impeached. Of course, it's a highly skewed poll.
That doesn't ring true to me.
But that poll, of course, is highly skewed. But it's saying 48% is saying to impeach Trump. Now, of course, we know what can erupt in that kind of situation. If there was an impeachment, there would be utter chaos. And knowing that the people who vote, the Americans that voted for Trump, knowing that this was simply a coup d'etat, will not stand as they see their country stolen and placed under foreign operative control again. As Trump is trying to fight and destroy the deep state, which is literally a foreign operative, foreign occupation controlling organization, we can relate with the people of God in Babylon. They are under captivity, and America really has been under captivity for decades now, under the tightening grip of the globalists and the centralists. It's only been coming to the forefront of perception and of consciousness due to the election of Trump, where now it's become quite apparent that, for example, the Republican organization, which was exposed this time in the up to the election process, showing that the popular vote actually meant nothing and that they could actually choose who would run as their candidate. So they've been literally lying in this fake charade of a stage charade for the last 30 plus years. And the American people actually believed that their votes mattered in electing or selecting their Republican candidate. Of course, this was Priebus, who is coming out to be the main leaker, who was on CNN saying, well, you know, this is a private organization, and it really doesn't matter what the American people think or the popular vote decides. We get to choose who our candidate is. That's unprecedented. That is unprecedented arrogance. But he said it as if it's no big deal. It's like, oh yes, okay. No, don't worry. This is just how it is. This is our organization. Your votes never really mattered. We just rigged it so that you would pretend and that you would believe that your votes mattered, when in fact we are no longer a democracy, or I'm sorry, a republic. We are imploding. We're an imploding democracy that has run now and that has been labeled by even the BBC, very leftist media, as an oligarchy. And as we reflect on Zion and the captives of Israel, the chosen people of God, now slaves to Babylon, a foreign, pagan, child-murdering culture and civilization, carrying them into their midst as slaves, raping their women, taking their young girls to become prostitutes, taking their young boys to be raped in the military, where even in Babylon, in many cultures actually, they would rape young boys. They would have allow for sexual relations with young boys, because that was a way to break them. It was a way to break them psychologically. Sex being a very, of course, the most powerful force on the planet, but Satan knows that, and so Satan uses that as a means of conquest and of submission. We'll see that not only in Islam, with radical Wahhabi-backed Islam, but you'll also see that in other cultures, which force their people to join the federalized military. And in that federalized military, you will see the culture of raping young boys who are forced to go into that military training. Because, of course, there's no Christian ethic of not raping boys. And the sexual culture is used as a tool for submission. Incidentally, the pagan samurai as well also engaged in this type of sexual predation. Did you know that? So there were, of course, obviously many evil samurai. It is really the Christian samurai who was the true samurai that embodied the principles of serving their master and serving their Lord Jesus, and fighting for righteousness. And of course, they were persecuted and they were targeted to be killed. So they were doing a very dangerous job, living as warriors in a culture Now, we usually think of Japan as such a peaceful culture. And we usually think of Japanese people as such peaceful people because in the modern day, they have enjoyed many decades of peace.
There have been many wars within Japan.
But Japan used to be one of the most militaristic societies in the world for about, 500 years, right? 500 years of military, feudal lord, endless warfare.
Well, about half of that there was no warfare because there was this kind of a enforced peace during the Edo period. But prior to
During
that,
the Edo
there was more
period,
than 100 year. Before the Edo period, there's more than 100 years of continuous warfare.
Wasn't it like 300 years of continuous war?
Depends on how you figure it, I suppose.
Yeah, but anyways, the feudal. That's why their samurai arts are so good.
Yes.
By the way, their swordsmanship and actual techniques of fighting are so good, and the sword technology, of course, is so impressive because of that constant testing, right, in the actual fire of warfare. But again, it was a very militaristic culture. And of course, because it was not Christian and did not have Christian ethics, and it was pagan in nature, actual sexual predation among samurais raping young boys was quite common, quite common. You can even get they even have pictures on wood print blocks of erotic, basic pornography of samurais having sex with women, but of course, I don't know if there's pictures of them having sex with young boys, but we know from historical record that was, what they called it like the cherry blossom. They called it the plum blossom or something like that. Also, there were some Buddhist
Pornography was called plum pictures or something like that. Plum blossom pictures.
There were even Buddhist monks who wrote about this. I believe in the, anyways, the homosexual academics use this a lot in terms of trying to justify their homosexual culture. But there were actual Buddhist monks, okay? So this was not only in the samurai. Buddhist monks were writing about deflowering young boys, okay? Basically, techniques on how to have sex with their disciples. I mean, this is how demonic it gets, okay? When you stray from Christian ethics, it becomes this demonic. And that's why good people must be armed. And Christian ethics are so important. You know, one thing we're trying to do, and one thing I think God is leading us to do is to, of course, to study the samurai arts, things like that, but really reclaim them under the protection of Christ and under Christian ethics. And really the resurrection of the Christian samurai. Because the Christian samurai really was the transformation of the samurai network. Because it started bringing the desire of the samurai, which was to serve a Lord, which was true and righteous. But unfortunately, many of the samurai would become commissioned by feudal lords that were evil, that were slave owners, that were prostitute pimp runners, that were, trying to collude with different powers and centralize power so they could get a hold of the eggs of the civilization, the women, the young girls, and of course, in their disgusting pedophile networks, to rape little boys and make that a part of their culture, their warrior culture, which was that's the hidden side of Shintoism and Buddhism in Japan. That is the unspoken hidden side of paganism. Always leads to sex cults, always. It's inevitable. Because they do not have the clear distinction of morality as outlined by the scripture and the righteous God that is the God of Israel. And of Jesus Christ's example. The example of Christ is fundamental in transforming a nation's ethics and in guiding a nation to protect the poor, to protect widows, to protect children. Jesus says, he who does sins against even the least of these, we were talking about the children, it is better for them to be thrown into the ocean with a millstone around their neck. That's basically killing them. Capital punishment. And so the Christian ethic in protecting young children, in protecting widows or women who are vulnerable, in protecting the poor who are impoverished and at risk. Okay, let's skip this break, guys. Freedom is absolutely critical to the foundation of a righteous nation of values. Absolutely critical. But in order for a nation to be able to defend its culture, its language, its borders, and its book upon which it's based, because even all secular nations are built upon books, even though they don't want to admit it. The secular Western postmodern culture is based on the evil books of Marxism, on the evil books of books of social Darwinism, okay, on the evil books of atheism, which create demonic culture. Why? Because they relativize evil. They relativize it. There's nothing inherently evil about raping a woman. There's nothing inherently evil about having sex with children. Those are all just social fabrications and constructs. And that's why good Christians must be able to defend themselves and their culture. They must not be guilt-shamed into being ashamed of having force and the domination of force. Remember, the samurai they wear basic business suits. You know, the kimono that they wore was not a peasant's outfit. The kimono with the obi and the hakama were not a peasant's outfit. That was actually like a business suit. Yes. It was more of a aristocratic outfit. And eventually the ninjas got all these young kids, when they train the sword, I want them to get their dogi, to get their hakama and their samurai outfit. But they understand that even the sign of the samurai sword was a sign of status. You know, we covered the Psalm 23 in the Korean service yesterday. And that section where it says, "You lead me in paths of righteousness for your name's sake. Though I walk through the shadow of the valley of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." We talk about how the rod and the staff represented three things. It represented the status of the person. It represented the job or profession of the person. And it also represented the authority of the person, as the rod and staff was actually a weapon. The it's called the crooked staff, or the hook staff, was actually a weapon used by the shepherd to fight off both wolves and lions. Okay, when the lion would attack and would open its mouth to attack, you would jam the rod into its mouth using the crook of the staff as a base to push with. Okay, and animals and even human beings have what's known as a gag reflex. If you stuff your finger down your mouth, for example, you'll want to throw up. You'll be like, "Wah!" You'll want to throw up. Animals also have a gag reflex. You can even test it on your dog. Stick your finger in the dog's mouth and you'll see it gags. Animals as well, large animals as well, have a gag reflex. So if you stab a staff, that's the air conditioning, by the way, because it's very hot. If you stab the crooked staff into the mouth of a lion, it will also do a gag reflex and back off of you. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
So the staff was a sign of status, profession, and also authority. What kind of authority that person, what he held on his body. The same way with the samurai. The samurai would hold their swords. Go ahead, guys, pick up a picture of the samurai. The picture of the samurai shows that they would brandish both a katana and a wakizashi, or they would do a katana and a tanto, or a smaller blade. And the reason why they would brandish those weapons, because again, they were signs of status, they were signs of their job, because even in the sign of the aristocracy, there's many different jobs and professions. There's lawyers, there's attorneys, there's judges, or all those kind of things. But the profession was made clear by what you were holding. And a samurai would hold a sword, which would show that their profession was, paid security, paid mercenaries. It would show and identify their profession as well. They also had the legal authority to cut down people. So it also showed their authority. Now we know they came from that is a satanic, they were still in the satanic kingdom at that time. Even though they developed a truly deadly, long sword fighting system and techniques, which are proven in throughout time in battle. And one thing I was teaching the kids yesterday is when we deal with weapons, it is not like a contest, a martial arts contest. This is life and death. They must understand. Samurai and the samurai spirit of the Christian samurai must be able and willing to cut down evil. Does that make sense? They must be willing and able to cut down evil and to destroy evil. Is the spirit of the warrior. Not only to wait for evil to pass or to be nice to it, so in thinking that it will be nice to you, you must be willing to stand up against evil and fight it. That's what Hisatsu means. Oh, I'm testing out my new folding Hisatsu. Folding Hisatsu. This is a beautiful folding blade. Here, zoom in on this. Designed by James Williams, Sensei James Williams. This is a patented design, but you can see again, it is made in the 15th century Osaraku style of a tanto blade, and it's called Hisatsu, which actually means certain death for evil, certain death for evil. Very beautiful design. I've had a very hard time. It actually has an automatic locking mechanism here, as you can see. The blade becomes like a fixed blade as soon as it's deployed. It has a spring, so in certain states, of course, the spring is, assisted spring is illegal, but in certain states it is not. Of course, in your home it's not. But you can see it fits in that very beautiful kind of bamboo-looking package. And I'm very thoroughly enjoying this. I've just had a very hard time opening the thing at first. I'm used to non-spring assisted folding knives, and this is my first really with a assisted spring. And it is very confusing to use at first, but this beautiful groove here is how you use it. And you actually press down into the blade to actually have it deploy. It's a very interesting design, but it really made my thumb quite sore last night. But you can see here, as you deploy it, you press down into that groove, and it becomes deployed. You see? And of course, the beautiful 15th century Osaraku style of the samurai becomes deployed. You can see how that is a very piercing style design of the knife, and that's quite different from our little ninja obake that you saw before. That is a more smoother, as you can see the smoother blade profile as compared to the Japanese style, 15th century style, tanto style, which is different from the American tanto style. But you can see this one has more of a roach belly and a longer roach belly, or a curved blade profile. And the bottom has a very sharp, almost a very, 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 very sharp 15th century design. So very beautiful blades. And of course that evoke the beauty of the art of the blade, which is the art of kenjutsu. Kenjutsu being the art of the techniques of the blade. But it's very important for good people to understand the use of violence and force. Not so they can be violent against other people, so that when those who use violence, and the Bible says, those who take the kingdom, take it by force, take it by violence. So the people of God must also be able to stand and be willing to cut down violence. James Williams has a beautiful lecture on that. Sensei James Williams has a beautiful lecture on that, on the attitude of the martial warrior who is training the art of weaponry. Because it is very different than empty-hand combat. Empty-hand combat, like even MMA, striking, Thai boxing, jiu-jitsu, you can attack your opponent and then you can take attacks too. Whereas with weapons, you cannot do a back and forth, give and take, give and receive hits and blows like you can do in boxing or MMA. You cannot do that. With weapons, you must go for decisive victory. Hisho. That's another blade name that he has. You must go for a decisive victory because you cannot do a back and forth with somebody carrying a 31-inch blade. It's impossible. You will be cut down. You cannot exchange blows with weaponry. You can't do it with gunfighting. You can't do it with knife fighting. You can't do it with sword fighting. So the art of the samurai. And the beauty of that art many times hides the grave danger of that art. The whole consciousness of the martial artist must transition from a contest-based training to a decisive victory-based training. The attitude and spirit is completely different. Once you have weaponry, you must literally remain unscathed while your enemy is struck down. And that attitude of decisive victory and that will to have complete and utter victory with no surrender is a very scary attitude for predators. Good people must be able to have certain victory, but that comes from a certainty in our relationship with Christ and the certainty of the civilization which Christ creates, Chanyugu, to defend that, to be willing to defend that against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to be willing to protect the poor, protect the vulnerable, protect the widows, protect children from those who seek to destroy them. That is the culture of Babylon, the child raping, pedophile, allowing, child murdering culture, which again stems out of paganism. You'll always see it. Every single culture you'll see that allows for paganism, you will see, I guarantee it, you'll see it. You will see the pedophiles. You will see the legitimization of that through law. You will see the trying to remove the Christian ethic. You will see the exploitation of not only girls, but also young boys. You will see legitimization of babies and killing babies in sacrifice. Basically, it always leads towards Satanism. There really is two paths. Jesus says he is the way, the truth, and the life. There are two paths. It's either Christ or it's paganism. That's Satanism. Now, there are different degrees on the scale of Satanism. Not all of them are at the most extreme level of Satanism from the beginning, but many of them are gateways into deeper and deeper occult, which of course leads to actual Satanism and actual killing of babies and sacrifice of cannibalism of babies, actual eating of human flesh, drinking of human blood, actual child raping, which is actually a lesser degree in their hierarchy, the imbibing and destroying and killing of babies and eating them and then raping them, of course, being their, quote, most enlightened levels, or levels where they transcend conventional notions of good and evil, what they call non-duality and or non-binary consciousness. Okay, all this leads to a relativization of human ethics, which breaks down once you adopt the philosophy of relativism. we call on all those warriors of Chanigu. Even though you don't get expert training, even though you may not be here getting the actual training from the second king, and all the bujitsu training, all the warrior training, all the kenjutsu and do is also a small knife, isn't it?
To means knife. It's
To,
a blade.
small
blade,
knife,
actually,
yeah. That means knife. And of course, ken is sword, coming from the Chinese jian, and the different from the knife to. So whether we do to jutsu, or whether we do ken jutsu, or whether we jujutsu, see, jujutsu just means soft technique,
Yes.
because all of that was originally based on the sword, and using the sword attacks, but now using it when you lose your sword, when you have in emergency, when you have lost your sword, and now you have to just use your hands, which is why samurai jujitsu is very different from Brazilian jujitsu, where many of its technique and locking systems are based with you standing and your opponent down, not from the ground position, not from the man between your legs position, which is the guard position in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is the reason why it's so critical for women to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because they learn how to fight with a man between their legs, which is the exact position that a rapist is going to be in. But the girls learn how to fight from that position, so they actually can disassemble and demobilize and literally cripple their opponent from that position, which in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is called the guard. So the point is, understanding the true nature of a real samurai who wishes to serve their Lord. I really felt serving Father that I can embrace all these martial arts and the spirit of samurai, reclaim it, because I felt really I was not only the bodyguard of Father, the last stage bodyguard for Father, but also I felt that I was practicing the Moshimesan. The Moshimesan is the Chinese character for samurai. The Moshimesan means the life of attendance. That's literally what it is. That's what it means. Attending God. Attending. It's actually created by the radical of a human being next to a Buddhist temple. But that doesn't mean it's actually Buddhist, okay? It just is the sound, the phonetic sound of the si, or the temple, is also the same sound that we get for the samurai shi in Chinese, okay? And that's the phonetic. But combined together, it means a person at a sanctuary, or the person at a temple. The temple, of course, we know the true temple, not a Buddhist temple. But the true temple being what? The body of Christ, the actual Christ, Jesus Christ, and the Lord of Second Advent. And of course, his kingship is the temple of God, is the actual temple on this earth. And I was telling the Koreans, look, when I'm training you as a second king, you are also in the presence of true Father. Because Father is there. Because we were talking about Psalm 23. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For you are with me. See, you are with me. When we are training, Father is with us. He is with us. The Spirit of the King of Kings is with us. Even though they're not aware of it all the time. The Spirit of the King of Kings is with us. It's so beautiful to be able to train, especially when we do the weapons arts, like Kenjutsu and some of that, to meditate and do these beautiful meditation as we focus in on controlling the breathing. And as we do that, we also read Psalm 23, which is so beautiful. That's enough for me this morning, as Mrs. Kong is here with us today. We'll have Mrs. Kong right after this short break. See you on the other side.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report this morning. I'm your host, Cheong Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. Thursday, May 18, 2017. Just take a look at this wonderful tie sent to us by our Korean brothers and sisters a couple of years ago, actually. But take a look at this very close. You'll see a secret surprise for all those who love the Tongye marks. See those little Tongye marks? This is actually a beautiful tie. See those little Tongye marks? These are actually Tongye marks. If you look really close, you can see the Tongye mark. This was a Tongye tie that we made in Korea. Do you have one, Tim?
I do. I have one, yes.
You have a blue one, don't you?
I guess it's blue, yes.
Is it blue? Yeah. Father actually wore this tie in red. And this one is the one I had. It's the pink one that the Korean members sent me. But actually a wonderful tie.
Yes.
Beautiful tie.
I wish I had bought more when they were
Yeah,
available.
you know. Well, they were asking whether or not we wanted to make them. And so all we have to do is just decide on the color. So let us know in the comments if people want to get them, then we can produce them again. But they're very high quality ties if you look closely. Actually quite stylish. And here, go zoom up on this real close. You can see there's nice little cute shinies. Little shiny, sparkly. See that sparkly? You can do your little cute little bling bling with the Tongye symbol. But also, see those right next to it? I think there's little circles with like 12 stars around or whatever, tell the spots. But it's actually quite cute and sparkly. And we had this in many different colors. Blue, we had it red, we had it pink, navy. I think we had a light blue and a dark blue. So 4 different colors that we had. We can do many other colors. We could do purple too. But it really depends on whether or not people will pick them up for use. That really depends. For us to bring the price down. They're actually produced in China because they can keep the price so lower. And that way it can be a nice, high quality tie, but for a reasonable price for a high quality tie. Let's now go to Mrs. Kong for our Holy Spirit moment.
All right, Mrs. Kong is reading today from Isaiah chapter 53, the first 3 verses. Who hath believed our report, and to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He hath no form nor comeliness, and when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not.
안녕하십니까.
Good morning, everyone.
오늘 이 아침 말씀드릴 내용은 참 아버님께서 많은 말씀을 남기고 갔었습니다.
Today I'll be speaking to you about the words that, the many words that True Father left with us.
그 말씀들을 이 아침 좀 더 알고 또 느끼고 또 생각하는 시간이 되었으면 합니다.
And I hope that this can be a time for us to know those words, to feel those words, and to think about those words.
아버님께서는 개인적으로 볼 때는 외로운 길을 갔었습니다.
Father, as an individual, traveled a lonely path.
그래서 남기신 말씀 중에 여우도 굴이 있고 공중에 나는 새도 깃들 곳이 있으되 나는 머리 둘 곳이 없다고 하신 말씀을 보아도 외로운 일생을 싸우시면서 갔었다는 걸 알 수 있습니다.
And so Father also one time said that foxes have their dens and birds have their nests, but I have no place to lay my head. So even that shows that at time Father was a very lonely person.
외로운 길을 걸으셨지만 하나님 아버지를 대하는 일에 대해서는 누구보다 많이 아시고 또 느끼시고 또 아시는 것만큼 실천해 오셨던 것입니다.
But when it came to matters pertaining to the will of God, Father knew more than anyone, and also felt more than anyone, and also practiced and accomplished more than anyone.
개인적으로 외로운 입장에 서 있었지만 역사 시대에 비통한 하나님의 심정을 중심 삼고 일생을 살아오신 것입니다.
Although he was lonely as an individual, he lived his life with the knowledge of God's tremendous pain and agony through history.
외로운 중에서도 언제나 아버님은 하나님 염려 말아 주세요. 나는 이러한 개인적인 시련의 길에서 후퇴하는 자가 아닙니다고 늘 하나님께 말씀하셨던 것입니다.
Although he was in a lonely position, he always comforted God, saying, God, please do not worry. I'm not a person who is going to retreat or pull back, that I will accomplish this.
6번의 옥고를 치르셨지만은 그 한 번도 하나님 나 하루 빨리 여기서 나가게 해달라는 그런 기도 그런 애원은 한 번도 하시지 않고 나는 내 갈 길을 가고 있습니다. 내 할 일을 하고 있습니다 하면서 오히려 하나님을 위로시키려는 생활을 해오셨던 것입니다.
He went to a prison. He was placed in prison 6 times, but never once did he pray to God, please have me released from this prison as quickly as possible. In fact, he would say to God, God, I'm all right. You don't have to worry about me. I'm doing what I need to do.
아버님은 하나님 앞에 참 효자 중에도 효자의 길을 걸으셨던 것입니다.
The father was the most filial son that God could have.
아버님은 언제나 나는 세계의 시련을 넘고 하나님을 해방해 드린 후에 나는 영계에 가겠다는 말씀을 여러 번 들은 적이 있습니다.
I heard Father say many times that I will overcome the trials of this world and I will liberate God before I go to the spirit world.
아버님 자신도 언제나 자신이 자신에게 다짐을 하면서 꼭 이 일을 내가 하고야 말겠다고 늘 생각하셨던 것입니다.
And he was always with the determination that I will certainly accomplish this. I must accomplish this. Always telling himself that.
아버님께서는 악마까지도 해방해 죽어져 원하는 심정을 가지셨습니다. 즉 하나님의 그 심정 그대로를 아버님은 실천하시고 그대로를 느끼시면서 살았던 것입니다.
Father wanted to liberate even the devil. This means that he had the same heart that God had, and was putting that into practice.
아버님께서 그렇게도 많은 핍박을 받으시고 욕을 많이 들었지만은 모든 것을 다 잊으셨습니다.
Father was persecuted tremendously, and he was cursed tremendously. But he overcame and had victory over all of that.
감옥에서 고문을 받으시면서도 할 수 있는 한 빨리 원수의 이름을 잊으려고 애를 많이 쓰셨던 것입니다.
Even when he was tortured in prison, he worked as hard as he could to forget the name of his torturer.
아버님 앞에는 지금 아무 원수도 없습니다. 그들의 잘못한 거 많았지만은 다 잊으시고 이제는 아무 기억에 남는 것이 없다고 하셨습니다.
And Father said, "I have no enemies before me. That they've passed, they've disappeared from my memory."
거기에서도 오매불망 아버님이 바라시고 원하셨던 것은 내가 할 일은 세계 인류를 다 구원하시고 하나님이 뜻이 이 땅 위에 이루어져서 온 땅 위에 인류가 다 잘 살 수 있는 그 세상을 만들어야 되겠다는 거기에 아버님은 참으로 모든 전체를 바치고 있었던 것입니다.
He dedicated himself completely to accomplishing God's will on this earth and bringing salvation to the entire humanity so that all people could have good lives.
아무리 많은 고생과 고문을 받아도 하나님의 이름을 찬미하시면서 아버님은 승리하셨던 것입니다.
No matter how difficult his life would be, no matter how much he was persecuted or tortured, he always praised God and brought the victory.
하나님의 가슴 속에 묻혀 있는 역사 시대에 누구 한 사람 알지 못하고 숨겨진 하나님의 깊은 심정의 흠곡이라는 것은 험한 골짜기에 사랑을 자극시킨 것입니다.
No matter how difficult it was, he would always remember the heart of God and to remember the love that God has hidden in the deep valleys of his heart.
아버님의 이 힘의 보호에 의해서 오늘 우리 교회는 이 정도까지 성장할 수 있게 아버님이 혼신의 노력을 하셨던 것입니다.
And Father dedicated himself completely, worked hard as he could, and that is why our church was able to develop to the point of where it is today.
더 나아가서 하나님이 넘으셨던 이상의 아픔과 비통을 느끼고 하나님의 섭리에 대하여 통곡하게 될 때가 많이 있었던 것입니다.
And Father often shed many tears to think of God's heart.
아버님이 통곡하심과 동시에 하나님 자신이 정말로 통곡하시고 우시는 그 음성을 아버님은 직접 들을 수 있게 된 것입니다.
Not only did he shed tears himself, but he could hear the sound of God wailing and shedding tears.
일생을 아버님은 그렇게 사셨던 것입니다.
That is how he lived his life.
하세요.
That is how he lived his life.
또 하나님이 아버님께 가까이 찾아오시어서 때로는 위로해 주시고 때로는 사랑해 주시고 때로는 정말로 내 심정을 이렇게까지 알아주느냐 하면서 내가 사랑하는 아들이라고 인을 치신 적이 한두 번이 아니었습니다.
God would often come to Father and love him and comfort him and thank him for the extent to which Father was able to understand God's heart.
아버님께서는 자기 자신을 해결하기 위하여 뼈를 깎고 녹이는 생을 보내시었습니다.
Father always sacrificed himself in order to accomplish victory.
눈물도 수없이 많이 흘리셨는데 병에다 그 눈물을 담는다면 수십 병이 넘을 것입니다.
Father shed many tears, and if we were to place those tears in bottles, there would certainly be tens of dozens of bottles.
아버님은 매도 수백 번, 수천 번 얻어 맞으신 분입니다.
Father was whipped hundreds and thousands of times.
뿐만 아니라 세계 가운데에 많은 화살을 받았지만 아버님은 넘어지시지 않고 꿋꿋이 서 계셨습니다.
And Father also received many arrows, but no matter how much he was attacked, he stood firm.
왜냐하면 아버님에게는 사랑이 있었기 때문입니다.
It was because Father had love that he could do this.
참 사랑은 때린 사람의 위치를 넘어서 영원히 성장할 수 있는 것입니다.
True love is able to grow eternally, even going beyond the position of the person who is striking you.
그러므로 우리 교회는 얻어맞으면서 아버님은 박해를 받으면서 오늘의 세계적인 발전을 해 오셨습니다.
So that our church, although it was beaten many times and although Father was persecuted, still we were able to develop to a worldwide level.
또 사랑의 주체 되신 하나님이 아버님을 참으로 필요로 하셨습니다.
And God, God of love, needed a Father.
어느 누구 세상에서 아버님만큼 정말로 하나님의 심정을 안 사람이 없고 하나님의 심정을 느낀 사람이 없고 하나님의 심정을 알고 그대로 정말로 살아드리려고 하는 사람이 없었는데 아버님 같으신 분이 나오셔서 하나님은 많이 위로를 받으시고 하나님을 감동시키신 분이 아버님의 생애였음을 우리는 알 수 있습니다.
No one on earth knew God's heart. No one on earth could feel or appreciate God's heart. But in that situation, true Father appeared as a person who could know and feel God's heart and to also live according to that. And that is the type of person that a true Father is.
지금까지는 아버님은 영광의 아버지가 아니시고 모든 것에 쫓김을 받으시는 입장에 서 계셨습니다.
Until now, Father was not the Father of glory, but instead he was the Father who was being chased around.
아버님께서 하나님을 향하여 나는 하나님 아버지의 아들이요. 나는 정말로 하나님을 내 아버지라고 나는 고백하고 내 아버지라고 말씀해도 부끄럽지 않을 그 내용을 나는 가지고 있습니다고 했습니다.
The Father would say to God, I am your son, and I am a person whom you can call your son without being ashamed.
나는 참으로 하나님과 끊을래야 끊을 수 없는 부자지 관계를 맺고 있는 하나님 아버지는 내 아버지라는 말씀을 자신 있게 말씀하셨던 것입니다.
He would confidently say, I am the Son of God. I am the person who has this father-son relationship with God.
세상에서 제일 가까운 관계가 부모요 자식의 관계입니다.
The most intimate relationship in the world is the relationship between parent and child.
여기에는 벽이 없습니다.
There are no walls there.
또 부모가 자식을 대하는 이 사랑은 한이 없는 무한대의 사랑인 것입니다.
And the love that a parent has for a child has no limits.
하나님은 예수님을 정말로 아들로서 예수님은 참으로 내 아버지라는 말씀을 많이 남기고 가시고 실제로 그렇게 살아왔던 것입니다.
Jesus too often referred to God as his father and also as himself as God's son. That is the way he lived his life.
그때 당시에 유대교인들과 이스라엘 백성이 왜 예수님을 죽이려고 했느냐 하면은 하나님을 아버지라고 하니 참남하도다. 어째서 아버지가 되느냐 하며 십자가에 내주었던 것입니다.
The reason the Jewish establishment wanted to kill Jesus was that he was calling himself the Son of God. And so how can you dare say that? And that is why they killed him on the cross.
죄목 중에 제일 큰 죄목이 하나님을 아버지로 믿었기 때문에 그들은 원수같이 생각하고 십자가에 달라고 아우성을 쳤던 것입니다.
There were many charges against Jesus, but the most important one was that he was referring to God as his father. And that is why they called for his crucifixion.
다음은 나는 신랑이라고 예수님이 말씀했어요.
And also Jesus described himself as the bridegroom.
아주
그래서 오늘 이 땅 위에 기독교인들은 다 자기는 신부의 입장에 있다. 왜 그러냐 하면은 예수님이 신랑이시기 때문에 나는 신부의 입장에 있다고 그들도 자신 있게 말하고 있습니다.
And so Christians around the world today say that they're in the position of the bride. This is because Jesus described himself as the bridegroom.
신랑과 신부라고 하면은 심정적으로 일체가 되고 육신도 일체가 되는 것입니다.
And bride and bridegroom are one in heart and also in physically as well. They become one.
마음도 몸도 하나 되는 것입니다.
One in mind and in body.
기독교인은 예수님 앞에 신부, 신랑 대신 예수 정말로 오신다고 약속하고 갔었는데 언제나 오시려나이까 하고 기다리고 있습니다.
And Christians are waiting for Jesus to come because they are the brides who are waiting for the bridegroom to come, wondering when he will come.
우리는 복되게도 오신 주님을 믿고 있습니다마는 이제 캄캄한 흑암 속에 있는 이들은 오실 주님을 지금 기다리고 있습니다.
We are blessed in that we have known the Lord who has come, but they are still in darkness, still waiting for the Lord to come.
그래서 예수님은 말씀하기를 내가 길이요 진리요 생명이다. 내게 하나님께로 가려면은 정말로 내가 길이요 진리요 생명이니 나로 말미암지 않고는 하나님 앞에 갈 수 없다고 당당히 말씀했던 것입니다.
And so Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one can go to the Father except by me.
그래서 이사야 51장을 보게 되면은 무슨 말씀이 있느냐 하면은 한 아들을 주셨는데 기묘요 묘사요 전능한 하나님이요 영존하신 아버지라는 이런 내용이 쓰여져 있습니다. 정말로 구약 성경에 이미 예수님께서는 정말로 기묘로 묘사로 또 전능하신 하나님으로 영존하신 아버지로 오신다는 것, 아버지로 나타나신다는 것이 분명히 여기에 쓰여져 있습니다.
But in Isaiah
한 아들을
51,
주셨는데
예,
기묘요 묘사요 전능하신 하나님.
51장입니까?
51장 이사야 51장
예, 이사야 51장.
이걸 보게 되면은 정말로 예수님은 전능하신 하나님이요 영존하신 아버지로 오신
예.
분입니다.
51장 몇 절인지 혹시 아세요?
1절에서부터
1절에서요?
예, 3절까지.
So it says in the
또 그리고 그
잠깐만요.
다음에
아직 그거 번역 못했습니다.
예,
51장,
51장
53장이 아니고요.
예?
51장,
예, 52장이에요.
52장.
예, 51장.
그 구절을 못 찾겠습니다. But in the Old Testament, it is prophesying to Jesus in this way in the book of Isaiah.
이사야 53장에는 그는 주 앞에 연한 손 같고 마른 땅에서 나온 뿌리와 같아. 우리가 보기에 위엄도 없고 권세도 없어 사모하고 흠모할 만한 것이 그 아름다운 것이 하나도 없다고 한 거 보니까 나는 그래서 늘 이런 생각해서 예수님이 생기기는 잘 생기지 못했던 모양이로구나 이런 생각도 많이 했습니다.
Then in chapter 53, verse 2, it says that he will grow up before him as a tender plant and as a root out of the dry ground. He hath no form nor comeliness, and when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. So this made me think that, well, maybe Jesus wasn't very handsome at all. Maybe he was pretty ugly.
그 예수님께서 우리 아버님에게 사명을 다 인계하시고 정말로 이렇게 되어주기를 이렇게 살아주기를 이렇게 뜻을 이루어달라고 애원하시고 부탁하시고 인계를 하셨던 것입니다.
Jesus then handed his entire mission, passed down his entire mission to Father, and taught Father how he needed to live.
예수님께서 이렇게 인계하시고 기도하시고 축복하심이 꼭 아버님께서 우리 이대 왕님에게 하셨던 것과 꼭 같이 하셨다고 저는 생각이 되어져요. 그렇기 때문에 이것은 거짓이 아니고 참이었고 참 하나님께서 예수님을 통해 우리 아버님에게 사명을 주시고 또 뿐만 아니라 정말로 예수님이 못다 하신 일을 해주기를 바라는 그 심정을 가지고 계시는 것으로 저는 알고 있습니다.
Jesus passed down his mission to Father, and I think this was the same or similar to the way that the Father passed down the mission to our second king. And I think that this is a wonderful thing. That is what is happening today.
그것과 마찬가지로서 정말로 아버님께서 우리 이대 왕님에게 대신자로 상속자로 축복하시고 기도하시고 임명하시고 또 인계하신 이 모든 것을 오늘 우리들이 이 아침 생각하면서 이 말씀이 참 말씀이고 참으로 주신 거라면은 정말로 우리가 믿고 또 지키고 나가야 한다는 것을 명심해 주시기를 바랍니다.
And this morning we need to realize that Father has appointed and acknowledged the second king as his representative body and inheritor and heir, and that is true. And so we need to believe in this, and we need to live according to this.
우리가 믿는 것만큼 전하는 것만큼 또 내 마음속에 정말로 절대적으로 우리가 믿고 나갈 때는 그대로 이루어지는 것이기 때문에 오늘 정말로 이 시대에 하나님이 바라시고 아버님이 원하시고 바라시고 또 이대 왕비님 할 것 없이 정말로 이 뜻을 이루어 놓기를 간절히 바라시고 원하시고 계시기 때문에 우리는 이것을 절대적으로 믿고 모시고 섬기면서 우리들이 이 역사에 승리하시는 여러분들이 되어 주시기를 바랍니다. 감사합니다.
God's will will be accomplished to the extent that we believe it. And right now, God's will is God is working to accomplish His will through the king and the second king and queen of Cheongguk. So let's believe in them absolutely, so that God's will can be accomplished in this world absolutely. Thank you very much.
And we'll be right back after this short break.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Who will be like Jesus to the least of these? If not us, tell me who will be like Jesus to the least of these? Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love. Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God
We are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. This Thursday, May 18th, 2017. Everybody's wondering why we're laughing. We're talking about a very cute photo shoot that we're going to be doing with the Queen tomorrow in her Tacticute Plate 3 Tacticute armor, and also maybe one in her Jujitsu Dogi, and maybe one with her trekking adventure pack. And stuff like that. Maybe she could do one doing bushcraft. That'd be pretty cool. And all the pictures, we're kind of playing around with the ideas now. But maybe with each of the pictures, you'll see the king in the background somehow hiding. And it's like, where's Waldo? You have to find me in the picture somewhere. I may be in a tree. You know what I'm saying? I may be floating in the sky. Anyways, all right, folks. We get back to it. Let's get back to the King's Report. And here,
Some serious news.
we are here. You hear it first on the King's Report. See, they always hear what we're doing, what we're brainstorming on the King's Report before we do it. But let's get back to the top news of the day. And here we are at DrudgeReport.com. Justice named special counsel, Dems poll test impeachment. Comey kept notes on phone calls, and on the left, look at this here, with Pence trying to sneak his way into the president's seat. Conservatives begin to whisper President Pence. Wall Street Journal, the special counsel mistake. Dick Morris, it's a disaster. Media reach peak meltdown. Republicans offer no help. House oversight wants Comey next week. Diaries demanded tax cuts may be next year. Stock tremors as Soros continues to pay for riots in the streets. UK bookies, he won't last. Defiant Trump vows, fight, fight, fight. There you go, folks. Let's go to the article there. Let me see where that is. Conservatives begin to whisper about President Pence. With Trump swamped by self-inflicted scandals, they say. Who is this? Oh, this is, of course, the Political. Okay, all right, there you go. They say it's self-inflicted, even though it's the media that's inflicting it upon Trump.
Yes.
It is the media. It is the destroyed Trump media at all costs media, which is paid for and sponsored by George Soros and the mega banks and conglomerates, and Freddie Mac and Freddie Mae. All those crazy. Do you notice how all the mainstream media, every commercial is about some crazy new pharmaceutical drug? You know,
There's a lot of
Xantex and, you know, Prolac and you know, Saroc, whatever it is. You know, there's just endless. There's all these like, and they have these pathetic commercials with all these smiling people and like, you know, slow motion, like frolicking through the woods. And then they say, please consult your doctor after using Xantex or whatever the drug is. May cause death, may cause,
Yes.
may cause
This
brain
stuff may
disease,
kill you.
may cause complications and side effects. Contact your doctor for it. After they had like a grandma and grandpa frolicking through the woods. Yes, it may cause death. Boom! The grandpa and grandma collapse to die after they have the pharmaceutical poison.
side effects include death.
Side effects, cancer. Hey, it's Grandpa and Grandma frolicking. Hi, Grandpa. How are you doing? I'm doing fine, honey. What's the news? Well, I just have stage 3 cancer because of this pharmaceutical drug. But I'm doing fine, frolicking through the woods, even though I'll die after I have this excursion. I mean, this is so insane. It's so ridiculous. Oh, my goodness. Okay, there you go. There is the lying media again. As they say, Trump swamped with self-inflicted scandals, even though they're the ones who are making the scandals and who are the ones who are trying to murder Trump in every single angle, both politically and actually talking about it physically too. They're trying to say, they literally have journalists saying, we need to oust Trump, we need to kill Trump, and nobody gets trouble. You have Harvard professors, okay, coming out saying Trump needs to be violently removed. It is outrageous what these people can get away with. Republicans find solace in the man waiting in the wings. Oh my gosh, see, yes, because he was a supporter of TPP. He was a supporter of NAFTA. He was a supporter of of imploding our sovereignty and merging us into the North American Union, which the globalists and the centralists and political Satanists at the top level, Bilderberg and Davos groups, wanted to do because they want to manage the entire world with 4 distinct blocks. And I already warned Asia about it, that the Asia-Pacific Union is coming. The Bilderberg group is going to push that because Davos group already is erecting Xi Jinping as their good little Chinese boy. You be a good Chinese boy now. Be a good little Asian boy. Be a good little coolie. You be a good little Asian slimy little aristocrat and work for us. If you allow our agenda to go through, we'll give you complete control over Asia. That's our deal. Make it with the devils. And you can see the Republican rhinos always being excited about Trump. I was very, very, very worried about Trump. About Pence. I was worried about Pence from the very beginning because this guy has a terrible record in terms of imploding American sovereignty and the constitutional sovereignty of the United States and being on board with the globalization project.
Yes.
Being on board with the globalization of America. All that means is removing the power of the people to decide the laws of their nation, merging us under the the UN, allowing the UN to decide our laws. That is insane. Can you imagine if from Geneva they can make the laws for Pennsylvania? Well, that's literally what the UN already believes it can do. I mean, it believes it can make laws for South Africa and Nairobi and Russia and
They're trying. Yeah, they're doing it.
and Sichuan, China and Pennsylvania.
With the
And,
sex education program. Yeah, they're doing it.
oh my gosh, give me a break. So we warn the Koreans to be aware of the 3 dangers that will come, the attacks of the plagues that will come. The first is the plague of the promotion of Marxism and communism as good. Second is the plague, and that's done through the academies and through public school. Another plague of the left will also be the plague of sex. Free sex culture will also be inculcated into the children and promoted by both girly pop and boy pop culture and girl group and boy group culture, as well as public schools doing health education from the UN, teaching about homosexuality, relativization of sex morals, and transgender culture will start pouring into Korea because of the leftist. And the third, of course, they must watch out. The third plague of the left coming, and political Satanism is coming, is the implosion of sovereignty into the Asia-Pacific Union, which they will try to put onto Korea. And of course, they were doing that with America, putting us in a North American Union. They had the Bushes on board, signing contracts with both the Mexican presidents and the South American presidents and the Canadian presidents, signing onto NAFTA. You understand what that does? That literally takes away our right as a country to, number one, protect our borders and decide who comes in and who does not come into this country legally. It also destroys our right to have sovereignty. That means to be able to determine the laws of this land. You're basically giving over this land to foreign control. Do you understand how treacherous and traitorous that is? That is remarkable. That is egregious. That is outrageous. It is insane, and that's why these globalists and centralists love Pence so much, because there he is trying to sit in the president's seat with his little smile. Now, somebody like this, Trump can use. Now, you have to understand Trump's situation. Trump must use demons. He has to, because there's different levels of demons, okay? In that position where he's totally opposed by 98% of the deep state, and you're talking about a 4 million man bureaucracy. Is it 4 million man federal employees? 4 million man employee base. Do you understand? That is the privileged superclass in America. They're above the law. They can get away with crimes. They have inside intel. They can they can collude with huge money makers and conglomerates for inside stock trading. They have higher salaries, higher benefits than normal workers in the private sector. They are the privileged class. So they want their, whether it be a Republican or a Democrat, they don't care. As long as that person is going to support their state power. They are sellouts. They are prostitutes who are literally get praised for being a government official. But at the same time, they know in their heart they're there to exploit the system. This system is not meant to create a second-class citizenry, which is 99.99% of the public.
1.4 million.
1.4 million?
Yeah.
I mean, that is a privileged group of people, 1.4 million people, that literally can rule this country.
Yeah, it's the basic federal workforce, the civilian workforce. And
And of course, they have different levels of power. But as they get promoted up on that rank, up that ladder, they get more and more power to literally do whatever the hell they want in America. It is insane. It is dangerous. And that's why the Chinese Constitution forbids the collusion and the growth of the state like this and limits the nature of the archangel to only 10% of GDP. Now, the deep state and the Republican rhinos like Pence, and of course, this is one of the great dangers of that Trump is dealing with. If he is either impeached or killed, it's harder for them to kill him because of their violent misandry against him, their violent hatred of Trump has become so apparent in the media that if they would kill him, which of course they've been calling for, etc., they would be so they would have blood on their hands. Now the impeachment process that they're trying to enforce now is better for them if they can get it through, because at least then they wouldn't have been called murderers, which they really are, especially having the Assassins Guild under their control. But they have always loved the fact that they have a rhino Republican there under Trump, so just in case, quote, Trump is gone, they get Pence, whom they will control. Both the left and the right colluding to do Obamacare. Both the left and the right colluding to bail out Fannie Mac and Freddie Mac. Both left and right colluding to do quantitative easing and support the Federal Reserve, and to deflate and to destroy the currency of the U.S. dollar. Both Republican right and left colluding to bring us under sovereignty of NAFTA, TPP, and the UN. I mean, they did everything. They did everything together. You understand? They did everything together. They are the same two-party duopoly, both funded as we reported and Breitbart reported in the beginning of the election process. President Trump's presidential run. As president, work as president. There was very clear evidence that both the left was funded by Soros and the right. People like Ryan, people like John Bolton, people on the right who were, quote, pretending to be Republicans, getting money from Soros executives. These people are being bought off by foreign money. And this is why they continue to push the same agenda that the Bilderberg Group, the Davos Group, the real Satanists of the world want to consolidate their total, absolute control over the world's populations. Not since the release of Access Hollywood tape in which Donald Trump bragged about groping women by the genitals have some conservative thought so seriously but wistfully about two words, President Pence. The scandals clouding Trump's presidency, including most recently his firing of FBI Director James Comey, has his alleged leak of classified information to Russian officials, and reports that he urged Comey to drop an investigation into top aide, have raised once more the possibility that Trump could be pushed aside and replaced by Vice President Mike Pence. There you go. All of that which has been made to have no evidence, been shown to have no evidence. They've been talking about Russian collusion for how many months now? Ever since he got into office now, it's been about 4 months now. Every single day they're about writing Russian collusion. Russian collusion, CNN broadcasts 8 hours a day. Russian collusion, possible Russian collusion, possible Russian collusion, possible Russian. Not one shred of evidence, not one piece. You would imagine that the entire intelligence agency, which is supposed to be the supposedly best in the world, would have come up with a little shred of it by now after after over 120 days in office. Give me a break. All they do is just try to destroy Trump with every single angle they can do. It is the media trying to prop up the destruction of Trump, the killing of Trump, and the impeachment of Trump. If what the New York Times reported is true, Pence is probably rehearsing one House Republican who asked not to be named quit Wednesday. It's just like Nixon, from the standpoint that it's never the underlying issue, it is always the cover-up. Such an insane time to live in, folks. We're living in such insane times. It is exciting to be alive, but and it is also a fearful and trembling time to be alive. We'll be right back after the short break. Stay with us on the King's Report.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report this Thursday, May 18th, 2017. I'm your host, Hyungjin Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk, broadcasting live from the Cheongguk Palace as the sun is now ascending over the horizon, showing its glowing warmth and I would say heat today.
It's kind of hazy today, isn't it?
Today, look at that humidity in the air. You can already feel it from inside the studio, the King's Report studio. I'm already starting to feel it. Are you starting to feel that? The heat?
Yes. And the
Wow,
air
as soon-
conditioning is coming on from time
Boy,
to time.
as soon as that sun peeks over that horizon, that heat just starts, that radiant heat just starts pouring in. It's like a super shelter in here, you know? It's like the Morse Cohansey super shelter with ever expanding radiant heat throughout this confined space. Let's go now to Tim, the Agent Elder, for his breakdown of the whispers of conservatives now saying President Pence. Go ahead, Tim.
I wanted to go to the WorldTribune.com's take on this, and this article points out that actually it's not President Trump that's endangering national security. It's the intelligence leaks and that are coming from the bureaucracy and also from the media itself.
That is such a critical point.
Yeah.
They are the enemy. They are the literal enemy of the United States. They are the enemy, foreign-controlled enemy of the United States. That bureaucracy. Go ahead, Tim.
It says here the continuous flow of U.S. intelligence leaks for publication by major media that appear to be targeting President Donald Trump and his administration are risking national security, current and former U.S. officials say. It points out that the Washington Post had that article about alleging that Trump leaked information to the Russian foreign minister. But Trump did not tell the foreign minister where that information came from. But you know who did? The New York Times did.
There
The New
you
York
go.
Times identified the fact that this came from Israel. That was an important piece of information that President Trump held back from the Russians, but New York Times chose to. So they are in collusion with the Russians.
Boom.
White House National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster said on May 16th, "I think national security is put at risk by this leak and leaks like this." A retired Air Force Colonel James Warashuk, a former intelligence officer who previously served in the National Security Council, told the Daily Caller News Foundation that the greater damage is the leaks coming out and the leaks compounded by the stories such as the Washington Post for political reasons. The plot that the Washington Post details was apparently a plan by ISIS to down a commercial airline with a laptop bomb, which is the suspected impetus for the U.S. laptop ban on flights, the Daily Caller report said. If this was a tactic or an operation ISIS was going to use, the first thing that ISIS is going to do is deal with it from the standpoint that somebody in their organization leaked it to someone else who got it to the U.S., Warashek said. The information would only be knowledgeable to certain select people within the ISIS organization. If there is a mole hunt, Warashek said, the reason will be because U.S. officials leaked the intelligence information to the press, not because Trump revealed it to Russia.
Boom.
Yeah, see that? It's the press that is endangering national security. Warashek
Boom.
added that there is no reasonable scenario in which Russia would compromise the information Trump provided by handing it over to ISIS. Without revealing sources and methods, it's hard to prove how the U.S. got it, who it got it from, when it got it. Warashek said, countering media assertions that the Russians would be able to determine essential information from the limited details Trump offered during last week's meeting with Lavrov and Kislyak. McMaster said, at no time were there any intelligence sources or methods discussed, and no military operations were disclosed that were not already known publicly. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer said the leaks were frankly dangerous, and that's really true. That they are, in order to bring down Trump, they are bringing down the United States, and they don't care.
They are complete enemies to the United States.
Right, they are. Let's go back to this.
Wow.
Let's go back to this story
Unbelievable.
that the King was referring to on Politico. That says that they're going to hear from the fourth paragraph. There's still far-fetched proposition. There's still far-fetched proposition of removing Trump from office has increasingly appealed to Republicans who are growing weary of defending Trump and are alarmed by his conduct in office.
They were against it from the beginning.
Yeah, that's right. He ran
Ridiculous.
against the Democratic Party, but also against the Republican establishment. He ran against the major media. He ran against Hollywood. And guess what? He's still fighting against them. That's no surprise. The Republicans, if they're weary of defending him, is because their hearts are never in it. He doesn't need people to defend him. He needs people to work with him to accomplish his agenda.
Boom.
But such whispers are cringeworthy for Pence and his aides, who have made an art of not upstaging the mercurial president. Pence's press secretary declined to comment for this article. On the campaign trail, Pence would shut down any conversations about the possibility of his own future bid should Trump lose, telling donors who raised the prospect that he was entirely focused on the race at hand. Eric Erickson, a conservative pundit, wrote on Wednesday that Republicans should abandon the president because they have no need for him with Mike Pence in the wings.
Boom. Wow. They're calling for open treason against the United States. This president has done nothing but try to get the United States back into the hands of the people. Did you see Keith Olbermann, this lunatic leftist?
I never watch him.
I mean, this idiot, this guy is literally saying to foreign nations, please, if you have stuff on Trump, release it. He's calling for open overthrow from foreign governments. He's begging to be taken over by foreign governments and allow them to intervene in the entire political process of the United States, even though he's been bitching and complaining about possible Russian collusion with Trump, which they've offered no evidence for. He's openly calling for the destruction of the president, which is open treason and sedition.
So he's colluding not just with one country, but with many foreign countries.
These people are literally the enemy of the United States. Go ahead, Tim.
And here's another conservative writer, I guess they call him a conservative, he's writing for the New York Times, argued that abandoning Trump now should be easier because someone competent is waiting in the wings. Hillary Clinton will not be retroactively elected if Trump is removed, nor will Neil Gorsuch be unseated. So he's saying that, well, Trump has served his purpose. He defeated Hillary. He got Gorsuch in. Now we don't need him anymore. So that's what this conservative writer is saying.
What a prostitute. What a conservative.
But here, further down, this article is quoting a GOP lobbyist who's speaking on condition of anonymity. I find it unlikely that Trump is going anywhere. That being said, Pence is well liked on the Hill, fairly predictable, and doesn't stir up much unnecessary drama. But we want a person who wants to stirs up trouble, right?
Stir up that bee's nest. Get those deep state fool soup swamp moving around. Swirl it up with a blender and a egg yolk beater. Go ahead.
I don't know. I think that's about enough on this article.
Just insane. I mean, you have now, quote, conservative, these con men conservatives, calling for the open removal of Trump, that it's not a problem. These people have been already dreaming about the fact that they can get their little globalist, little centralist, little political Satanist Pence in there. Because as long as he's managed by Trump, he'll stay in line. As long as Trump is there to make him decide to not sell out his own people and sell out his own country and bow to the will of the political Satanists in the UN. Pence can still be used by Trump. But if they either kill Trump, assassinate Trump, or they remove him, and Pence is now under the pressure of the, quote, establishment Republicans, he will 1,000% go back to his globalist ways. He will become a demon again. And what people have to understand, when you're working at this level, you have to use some demons. You have to. But there's a lesser degree. Are you going to use the greater demons or the lesser demons? You have to. I mean, it's not, there's a problem. And this is why the kingdom is built with both Cain and Abel. Kucha was talking about this. Because Abel only wants to work with righteous people. But a nation needs to have has to have room also for even the very dangerous people. It has to. It has to have the assassins have to want. You don't want them on the opposite side. You want them on your side and under your control. And you want them to be under the control of the police, militia. Because there's always going to be assassins for hire, but you don't want them to go off to the other side and start trying to start revolutions. What is also, this is what's so, people, the assassins, prostitutes, these kind of people, they also are to be used by the kingdom. What is a CIA, FBI agent? That is a beautiful woman, okay, that is doing secret spying and secret information gathering. What is she? She's a prostitute for the state.
Yes.
Doing, quote, national security work. She's sleeping with high-level officials to get information on the enemies. That's literally what a high-level intelligence gathering CIA woman and FBI woman is. It's a prostitute. It's a literally state-paid prostitute to gather information from demonic people. Now, that's not saying that should be the standard of all Chinese Goga and that should be the standard of it. No. But you're going to have these people. You are going to have people that are doing these kind of things. The question is, and you're never, because there's free will, you're never going to get rid of every single vestige of this kind of sin. So and that's why Cain and Abel must together are the foundation to build the coming of the kingdom. Of course, on the foundation of the King of Kings. It's essential because you can't just work with saints, quote, saints, of which there really are none except Christ. But, quote, saints, you also have to be able to work with sinners, quote, sinners, even though everybody's sinners. I mean, you understand what I'm saying, this dichotomy. Cain is, and Cook Jones, he says it all the time, Cain is more willing to work with the sinners. Abel is I'm holier than thou, and doesn't want to work with the sinners. That's a problem. That's why Cain and Abel must be together in establishing the physical kingdom. Because Abel wants to just bring in the highly religious and people who are giving Cheongsang and doing honorable ethical training. But Cain says, hey, wait a minute. We also, we have to try to include as much as we can, even some of this dark side. We have to use that for the protection of the kingdom. We have to use some of that for the glory of the kingdom. Now, that may seem counterintuitive. That may seem weird, But it's not weird when you understand that you can, with free will, you can never get rid of the assassins completely. You can't. Unless you make them human beings, all robots, and force them to only do good, which God doesn't allow. You can't. You're gonna have assassins. You're gonna have hoes. You're gonna have women that are gonna sell their body for, for sex, for money. Okay? The question is, can those people, which by the way, you can never get rid of that population unless you do it by force. And even though you try to do it by force, they'll always create a black market for it. Okay? That's reality. That's reality. Not according to your opinions, not according to your emotions. It's reality. When you're free will, people will choose to do sins. Now, can you use those people to do things for the benefit of the nation? Yes, you can. And that's the perspective of Cain. That helps Abel have a larger tent for which to build the kingdom. Isn't that, there's a paradox there, isn't it? There's a paradox. Because Abel has to also in the kingdom, and the king, representing the king, has to be the actual patriarch and religious priest, the head priest, so to speak, of the nation. Right? And the general inspector is represented by Cain. So there has to be an operation of both Cain and Abel working together. And we can learn it from the principle. Early on, God has always been trying to have Cain and Abel unity for the establishment of the coming of God's nation. Remember, that builds national level providence for the Messiah to return. National with Cain and Abel unity. Right? Because Cain and Abel unity is essential for a nation to be built. But it's a very important thing for our sanctuaries to understand.
Raju, that's
Very important.
wow.
Because God
very
can
profound.
God can save those prostitutes. And God can save those assassins to actually be used for His glory. No. I'm not saying all peace militia should do that, and girls, you should start prostituting yourself for the glory of God. No, don't do that. See, that's just a very small outlying group, which are chronically, psychopathically, mentally unable to leave those things. The vast majority of population of 99.99999% who are not psychopaths should, and who can have actual dominion over themselves, should not do that.
Keep yourself pure.
Should strive for our God who is perfect
Yes.
and be led by His righteousness. Now there are some who are psychopathic, who want to assassinate people, and who are addicted to the dark arts of killing for hire and sledding themselves for hire. Literally, they get and maybe it's because of trauma, whatever the reasons are, not only just psychopathy, but they maybe have been traumatized, etc., and just can't get out of that state of constant perpetual prostitution. You know, there's people in Korea, for example, Americans who went and slept with prostitutes in Korea, in the military, and they actually fall in love with the girl. They try to marry her. That girl cannot survive. She can't survive. The girl always ends up leaving her, most of the time. Ends up leaving that man and goes back to her pimp and prostitution.
Yes.
Of course, because they've been hooked onto heroin and drugs and in the sex culture, and they've been so accustomed to sleeping with so many men. Sleeping with one man is so weird to them. And it almost feels like it's oppressive. It's so unfortunate that a woman has been broken down so far that she has to perpetually live in that state of continual suffering.
Yes.
And self-degradation.
Yes. And unfortunately, that's how they define their self-worth, to be found.
It's completely merged with their own self-identity,
Yes.
which of course the devil gave them. Now, can God turn that around? Yes, He can. Okay? Is there remarkable cases, miraculous cases where those kind of women turn and become incredible people for Christ? For example, JC girls. Guys, type in JC girls, Jesus Christ girls. I don't think they're a group of former prostitutes, but they're psychologists and sex therapists, I believe. And they actually reach out to people in the sex industry, porno industry, and stripping industry, and sex industry, prostitution. They're basically trying to create a church of sluts, a church of prostitutes, okay, that are trying to free them, and they don't judge you even though you're actually still a prostitute. They try to create a place where the prostitutes can gather, learn about Jesus, and have Jesus transform them, okay? So is that course possible? Yes, of course it is. There you are. There are the ladies at,
This is a,
wow, they were at, well, look at that. Hold on, go down. They were at, go ahead, put that up. They were at JC Girls booth at the 2007 AVN Adult Entertainment Expo. Wow, so that's like a porn expo, isn't it? But they are trying to witness to, look at that, communicating especially that Christians exist who are not judging female sex workers and are willing to accept them and work with them to get them freed, basically to get them free, not to continue their sex stuff, but to get free from it. So is that possible? Yes, of course it is. But there are some people of which it is not possible. They are so addicted and so destroyed mentally that it is not possible for them to change their life around. We have to understand how traumatic and devastating it is to one's psychology and psyche to be continually, having sex with more and more partners and more partners. It's just, it devastates your it devastates your soul, your spirit. It devastates your psychology. It devastates your psyche.
imagine what it would be like to have relations with 5, 10 or more men every night, every day.
Every day. And they have to do that to make money for the pimp
yes.
who is hooking them on heroin and hooking them on drugs. Okay?
That's devastating.
Do we pray that all of them are freed from that kind of bondage? Yes. That is our wish, our prayer. That is the true heart of every Christian. Wants to have those women freed and those men and women that are in those industries to be free from that bondage of slavery. It's total slavery. It's so demonic, okay? Okay? But at the same time, can all of them be freed? No. That statistics just show it. They can't all be freed. So it's a very interesting dichotomy and paradox that people of Chani go because we face not opinions and or emotions, but we look at reality. We have to understand that there's a larger tent than we assume that can operate and work in Chani-guk for the glory of the kingdom. Yes. Okay? And we have to go beyond our I'm holier than thou attitude because there will be many in the kingdom who are sinful, but who still can be used for the glory of God and his kingdom. Gotcha. Now, we pray that they are led to repentance and they accept Jesus and they accept Christ and those kind of things. But the point is that the umbrella of the kingdom is large. There are many different, and I'm always telling this, I was talking with Jamal and, even with Lourdes, because they fight online and publicly and they whatever. And of course, I don't get involved and say, don't do this, but I just remind him, look, me as the true Father's representative on earth, okay? As the Father representative on earth, okay? These are all people who stood up for Father. These are all people who risked their reputations to stand up for Father. So you may not like one another. You may think one of them is crass, or you may think one of them is a bitch or whatever. But from Father's perspective, at the most difficult time, whether you like them or not, that's irrelevant. They stood up and risked their families, their lives, their reputations, everything, to stand up for the authority of Father and stand with the kingship. That means everything. So just because you bicker and you don't like each other's personalities and you don't like how people talk to each other, I don't care. That means nothing to me in the Father's position. Because in the Father's position, what's important is the character of these people. Not that they're perfect, they have perfect personalities, but the character that they stood up against Satan even though everything was against them. And for that, we have to be grateful. And that's why the Father has to have the larger perspective. Do you understand? That makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. The Father has to have the larger perspective and the larger umbrella, which says, look, the 144 are not perfect. I understand that. But what I look at, what true Father is looking at, It's not how our personalities match or how they clash or how this person pisses me off because he uses this type of language or how this person because she's trying to be controlling and she's a control freak. Doesn't matter. Those are things you work out as siblings. What is important is the honorable nature of those people, whether you like their personality or how they speak or not. And that is what Father looks at. You're not going to like everybody in the kingdom of God, even in the spirit world. You're not going to like everybody. They're going to have clashing personalities with you. God doesn't care about whether you like it or not. He doesn't give a shmita about it. True Father doesn't care about it either. He had leaders that hated each other all the time. He didn't care. He wanted to look at whether or not that person stood for him in the early days. That meant huge to Father. That was everything. Now, of course, they eventually betrayed him, etc., and those kind of things. And they're coming back in repentance, etc., as fallen people, but still come back under Father's authority. And when they do, we can celebrate. That doesn't mean we have to give them power and fund them and something like that. No. But we can say, praise God. You see? From the father's perspective, it's different from the sibling's perspective. I, as the only true successor, not self-appointed, the only legitimate successor and representative of true Father on earth, which he said there will always be a representative of true Father on earth. I am that representative, not because I chose it. I'm not self-appointed, you idiots. I did not choose it.
Father appointed.
Father chose it. I am his representative. I am true Father on earth. Not because I chose it. Not because I'm perfect. Because Father saw in me what he saw. That I am an honorable son. And despite my imperfections and, idiosyncrasies, that is what he counts preeminently. And of course, I protect the lineage. I don't have free sex culture. I have control over my body and mind. And I am addicted and hooked to the queen.
That's a good addiction.
I said, baby, you're my cocaine. I said, how come the queen is like heroin? You're a bad girl. I don't need that crap. I have the gift that God gave me. You understand? I didn't choose her. See, this is the thing too. I didn't choose her. You understand? God chose her for me. Isn't that amazing?
Yes,
I didn't
it
choose her. It's not of my choice. I'm confident I told her, and she knows it too. I told her I can marry any girl, and she will be in love with me. I guarantee it. You may consider that arrogant. It's just simply true. I don't care what you think. I will be victorious with any woman Father chose for me. I don't care, white, black, Asian, doesn't matter. I will be victorious in that marriage. I guarantee it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I win. For God. But God chose her. What a gift of God. And I reflect on that quite often. Our spouse is the gift of God.
Raju.
Our spouse is the true grace of God.
Raju. Praise God.
Not only husband looking at wife like that, wife has to look at husband like that too, and of course the queen does. But wives got to look at your husband. This is the gift of God, the grace of God. Wow. How women are not told to have that perspective. They're always told that it's always the husband's fault and they should victimize themselves. Even though they're reminded not to do that, the popular culture always is cramming this down their throat. The point is, in Cheongguk, there is a large tent for the kingdom. Not everybody in that kingdom
Thank you, God.
is going to be a high priest of the house of God. There are going to be some devils in there. But those devils will never be able to centralize power. That's the key.
Yes.
They'll always be on the fringe, and they'll be always under control of the police militia. They'll always be under control by the citizens. Why? Because citizens have all the sovereignty, they have all the assets, and they have all the guns. So you can have an assassin, but a village of people who are all armed and sovereign can easily dominate that assassin. You understand? You see how that happens? A town even like this could easily dominate an assassin who lives in this town.
Yes.
Because as soon as he starts killing, we're going to get him. We're going to get him and punish him. And if that person can be reformed by the law, according to law, he may get capital punishment. He may not, depending on the crime. And that person can decide to work for the village or the town, or to continue his wicked ways and die. You see what I'm saying? Evil can be managed when the people have power, not the federal state. When the federal state has power, evil magnetizes itself to it and only becomes stronger. To what? Exploit and tax farm human farm people. That's really the word for it. It's human farming. That's why they want the EU. That's why they want the centralized Asia-Pacific Union, because they want to human farm poor Asian people. They want to steal from them using the headquarters in Beijing, China. Because they can rob and rape everybody at the same time through one organization if they get that centralized control. You see how they work?
Yes.
This is the demonic nature of the archangel. We understand that in Chanigo. So we are vigilant against his power. We'll be right back after the short break. Stay with us.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Who will be like Jesus to the least of these? If not us, tell me who will be like Jesus to the least of these? Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love. Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. Lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. I'm your host, Hyungjin Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk, the representative, true father on earth. Did you know that, Tim? You know that. You know
I knew that. I
Representative.
guessed it, yes.
And I'm not self-appointed. See, I gotta always remind people because they think I'm bragging about myself. I'm not. I'm not self-appointed. Do you understand?
Yeah, you didn't.
I'm not self-appointed.
He didn't ask
I'm
your
not
opinion.
bragging when I state a truth. Okay.
He said, what, "You want this
It's
job?"
like-
He didn't say that.
It's ridiculous. Okay. Let's getting back to this. Go ahead, Tim. Tim's
right.
gonna break this down a little more. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay, let's look at a Wall Street Journal article. It's an opinion piece. It's called "The Special Counsel Mistake," just as I start to look at it, it closes. But here we go. We'll go in here. Rosenstein bends to political pressure, and here we go again. Is the Wall Street Journal's subtitle? Democrats and their media allies finally got their man. Yeah, Democrats and the media allies. Yeah. After weeks of political pressure, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein blinked late Wednesday and announced that he had named a special counsel to investigate Russian attempts to influence the 2016 presidential election.
Oh, come on.
These expeditions rarely end well for anyone, and Democrats are hoping this one will bedevil the Trump administration for the next 4 years. My decision is not finding that crimes have been committed or that any prosecution is warranted, said Mr. Rosenstein, which is nice but irrelevant. With Attorney General Jeff Sessions recused from the Russia probe, Mr. Rosenstein appointed former FBI Director Robert Mueller III, who will now have unlimited time and unlimited resources to investigate more or less anything and anyone he wants. While the decision will provide some short-term political relief, not least for Mr. Rosenstein, it also opens up years of political risk to the Trump administration with no guarantee that the public will end up with any better understanding of what really happened. The problem with special counsels, as we've learned time and time again, is that they are by definition all but politically unaccountable. While technically Mr. Rosenstein could fire Mr. Mueller if he goes too far, the manner of his appointment and the subject he's investigating make him de facto untouchable, even if he becomes an abusive, Javert-like Patrick Fitzgerald during the George W. Bush administration. While what the country really needs is a full accounting of how the Russians tried to influence the election and whether any Americans assisted them. That is fundamentally a counterintelligence investigation. But Mr. Mueller will be under pressure to bring criminal indictments of some kind to justify his existence. He'll also, no doubt, bring on young attorneys who will savor the opportunity to make their reputations on such a high-profile investigation. Mr. Mueller has experience in
There we
counterintelligence and at 72 years old has nothing to prove. But he is also a longtime Washington player close to the FBI whose director was recently fired, and he is highly attuned to the political winds. As they say in Washington, lawyer up!
So basically, this man doesn't have to do anything except try to justify himself and his salary and his prosecuting team and his team of lawyers that have been paid for doing nothing.
And he can investigate anyone he wants for anything he wants.
And they'll have to present no evidence about Russian collusion because they won't find any.
Yes.
They're going to find evidence on Hillary Clinton giving him Putin the uranium deal, but of course they won't make any problem about that. All they'll try to do is justify their existence and justify their special counsel, status, and their lawyers getting the $200,000 salaries per hour. Give me a break. Totally insane. Thank you for the breakdown, Tim. On other news here, as the computer frees, there we go. Media reached peak meltdown over Comey memo. Russian disclosure. It is just endless propaganda on CNN. fresh pair of Trump controversies has press demanding impeachment, suggesting people will die. Frenzied for a month in the pursuit of a smoking gun to fatally topple the credibility of the administration, the media have been apoplectic over a quick succession of controversies now beleaguering the Trump White House. Following a week dominated by press outrage over the firing of FBI Director James Comey and defiant follow-up remarks made by Trump, the Washington Post, come on, there we go, advertisement jump in here. The Washington Post allegedly Monday said the president improperly disclosed classified information to Russian officials during a meeting on May 10th. Trump reportedly spoke out about intelligence obtained by Israelis, according to the New York Times, which Tim pointed out they're the ones who leaked it, regarding an alleged ISIS plot to use laptop computers as hidden bombs. The intelligence was classified, although a U.S. president can declassify material and speak with foreign leaders about such information, especially when it involves potentially imminent terrorist threats. McMaster, the National Security Advisor, said the president did not divulge secret sources and methods to the Russians. McMaster noted on Tuesday that a Russian airliner was blown up by Islamic terrorists in October 2015 and suggested a mutual concern took over the meeting. But the media and Democrats pretending to be born again, anti-Kremlin security hawks threw a major hissy fit. There is no denying the Trump revelation to Russia may be serious. Yet it may also be routine as a presidential matter, but the media badly overplayed the story. I'm sorry, this is not from CNN, this is from PoliZet. Politics explained, and they are, of course, writing against the CIA and the mainstream destroy Trump at all cost media. And the media were generally proud that they overplayed it. At the Washington Post, the newsroom broke into applause as the story surpassed the Post's own record for most readers per minute, originally set by Hollywood Access Story, according to Glenn Kessler, the Post fact-checker columnist. The Hollywood Access Story was the Trump scandal during the campaign, which the Post discovered an 11-year-old audio tape of Trump engaging in lewd talk with Billy Bush. He's 11-year-old audio tape. Bashing Trump is good business, and the newsroom has gotten the message. And there are other messages being sent. As CNN on Tuesday, Trump supporter and former Navy SEAL Carl Higbee was told on air not to question sources and reporters about anonymous sources. How dare he? How dare he want to know which sources these people have when they make outrageous, hysterical claims? Here are some more examples that appear to prove that the media have long since left behind reporting. Increasingly, even purportedly neutral anchors and hosts are on an open mission to expel Trump from the White House. And they go on to the impeachment process that they are trying to force upon the United States. In other news, the U.S. conducts military drill to counter North Korea's WMDs in Seoul. May 18th, Yonhap News reports U.S. soldiers stationed in South Korea have recently conducted an exercise aimed at destroying North Korea's weapons of mass destruction, or WMDs, by practicing a ship-to-shore air assault from South Korean warships. The infantry division said Thursday. The U.S. Armed Forces carried out the exercise called Warrior Strike 7 at Camp Stanley in Uijeongbu, just north of Seoul, and the Rodriguez Live Fire Complex near the inter-Korean border, it said. The exercise is designed to enhance the battalion's skills in countering WMD operations, according to Facebook account on the 2nd Infantry Division. It did not reveal when the exercise took place. The drill involved the Tokdo, the South Korean warship, and was the first ship-to-shore air exercise mobilizing a South Korean naval vessel, it said. Aboard a helicopter, U.S. soldiers practiced an infiltration into mock facility of the enemy in a bid to strengthen their capacity to destroy the WMD in a speedy manner, it said. South Korean servicemen are known to have taken part in the drill. The move came as North Korea's nuclear and missile programs are advancing, posing a threat to peace and security on the divided peninsula. North Korea on Sunday fired a new intermediate-range ballistic missile, which it claims can carry a heavy nuclear warhead, insisting the U.S. mainland is within its striking means. About 28,500 American troops are stationed in South Korea, as a legacy of the 1950-53 Korean War, which ended in truce, not a peace treaty. There you go from Yonhap News. Also, North Korea preparing for cruise missile strikes, RFA. Also reported by Yonhap News, which is, of course, one of the biggest news outlets in Korea. The North Korean army is repairing protective walls for gallery positions to brace for possible cruise missile strikes after witnessing such U.S. attacks on Syria last month. A U.S. broadcaster said Thursday. This is May 18th. The North's Armed Forces Ministry ordered the army to take steps to protect gallery strongholds from air raids in mid-April, Radio Free Asia said, citing the Osaka-based North Korea Specialist News Oregon Asia Press. Early last month, the U.S. military launched over 50 Tomahawk cruise missiles at a Syrian airfield in response to Bashar al-Assad's regime's alleged use of chemical weapons on civilians. North Korea seems to be very aware of the U.S. attack on Syria, Jiro Ishimura Maru of Asia Press said, adding that the media outlet's North Korean sources clearly said preparations against cruise missiles. In particular, the ministry's instruction called for the army to remove strongholds made of stones, as they can cause additional casualties when they are broken to pieces by missiles. Instead, make them with gunny sacks filled with earth or sand. There's a picture of the USS Ross firing a Tomahawk missile on April 7, 2017 from the Mediterranean Sea. There you go, from news coming out of the Korean land. Also, another strange news, Cyclops goat, born with one eye, is worshipped by villagers in India. You see, this is proof. They always talk about evolution and how genetic mutation adds, the process of evolution explained by genetic mutation and natural selection. The problem is with mutation, it doesn't increase or strengthen a gene set, it weakens the gene set. And it actually creates things that are deleterious to the animal's survival. For example, having a cyclops eye will not help that animal survive in a wilderness scenario. It will not be able to gauge distance properly, and thus will not be able to acquire its resources properly. And because it will be more clumsy in fleeing from predators, it will only be devoured that much more quicker and become a quicker meat source and food source and calorie source for larger prey predating animals. You see how that works? Mutation does not. There's not one example of mutation that actually increases the genetic capability of an organism. The mutations are negative almost exclusively. So the whole argument for genetic mutation, natural selection, then creating a greater species revolution and super advances from reptilian species to mammalian species to whatever, the higher level species, is outrageous because there's not even one example of genetic mutation where it's actually beneficial for survival and reproduction for the given species. It's just so ridiculous. But there you go. There you go. A cyclops mutated goat being worshipped in pagan land. Unfortunately, so many Indian people are trapped under this type of paganism. Some villagers believe the goat that was born in Assam in India is sacred and have begun to worship it after born a week ago. Vets predicted the goat, which has only 1 year, also would die within a few days, but has defied the odds so far. See how it's like a miracle that it lives for just a couple of days?
Yeah, even
It shows
a few days.
its weakened state, okay? There's no way that would compete with a naturally strong goat. People have been visiting the village to see the kid, which suffers from a condition seen in other animals, including horses, pigs, cows, and cats. They're calling it the kid. The condition which causes the defect is called cyclopia.
The kid is a baby goat, I think.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. They're calling the baby goat the kid. And occurs when the two hemispheres of the brain do not separate. See, it's not a benefit
Right.
for that animal to have cyclopia. Gosh. Oh, goodness. And they're worshiping the dang thing. Oh, my gosh, it's so sad. So sad. Oh, the world really needs Christ, everybody. Support your missionaries. Support those who are going out and spreading the gospel. Support ministries that are preaching the gospel. Please do so. We'll be right back after the short break. Oh.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group, With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology, it's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Carr Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry, Carr Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit carr.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. I'm your host, Hyungjin Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. Let's go now to Paul Joseph Watson's breakdown of the impeachment of Donald Trump. Let's go to that video. Having some technical difficulties. Let's try again. Let's try again one more time. Are we getting audio on that? Unplug? Okay. One more time. Here we go.
Legitimize Trump
There we go.
was firmly based around setting the narrative that he's an illegitimate dictator. They're radicalizing the violent alt-left. We've seen the attacks on Trump supporters. We've seen the crazies trying to scale the White House fence over and over again. This summer, the situation could explode. The drive to impeach Donald Trump will lead to either war abroad or war on the streets of America. Sources close to the White House indicate to us that sleeper cells within the administration, turncoats, will be the leading voices in the push to impeach Donald Trump. The same traitors responsible for the leaks, in alliance with never-Trump Republicans, are feverishly working with the Democratic Party establishment to sabotage Trump, and thanks to the media. Bought and paid for by the deep state, the propaganda is working.
But clearly we're on the trail there to an impeachment.
Are we getting closer and closer to the possibility of yet another impeachment process?
I rise today, Mr. Speaker, to call for the impeachment of the President of the United States of America.
Are well on our way to impeachment.
Odds of Trump being impeached by the end of 2017 have shot up past 30%. 48% of Americans want to see it happen, and that's because the media has engaged in blitzkrieg-like onslaughts of deception. We're told this Comey memo is, quote, deeply troubling. So troubling that Comey sat on it for 3 months. So troubling that he kept it quiet for all that time and only released it days after he was fired. What a coincidence! So Trump tells Comey that he hopes he'll be fair to Flynn because he thinks he's a good man. And the media calls this obstruction of justice. Even CNN admits that this is part of the deep state's revenge against Trump.
We know that this is, they talk about the deep state. Well, these are communities that have a lot of loyalty within and know how to get back, even if you're the President of the United States.
The same revenge that Chuck Schumer promised with an evil glint in his eye before Trump even took office.
Let me tell you, you take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
The leak to the Washington Post. Trump tells Russia how to protect innocent people from being blown up on a plane by ISIS, and he's the monster for trying to save lives. Not a single shred of evidence has ever been presented to prove Trump colluded with Russia to influence the election. But that doesn't matter to these people. The end justifies the means, And the end game is the elimination of Trump at whatever
commies.
cost to the country. Isn't it rich how they still grandstand like they've got the moral high ground? Keith Olbermann begging foreign countries to launch a coup d'etat. You're literally trying to incite the overthrow of a democratically elected president. You don't have the moral high ground. These people are perfectly willing to see the country fail if it means they can claim they were proven right about Trump. They're quite happy to see the plane go down, even though they're on it, just to soothe their butthurt about losing the election. Difference is, they've got parachutes. The middle and working class Americans who voted for Trump don't. And they're the ones who are going to suffer. There are two courses of action for Trump. Either he initiates a massive purge of fifth columnists within his administration, as well as completely replacing his communications team, which steadfastly refuses or is too incompetent and weak to fight back on any of these issues. The deep state has declared war on Trump. It's time to fight back. The other option is war. You saw what happened after the airstrike on Syria. The deep state left him alone for a few weeks, and his approval rating recovered. Trump could launch a massive war and rally the country around that last refuge of scoundrels, patriotism. But that's exactly what the deep state wants. And once it's over, they'll just keep undermining Trump anyway. Where's this all heading? If the media intensifies this effort to portray Trump as illegitimate, which it will, the situation will explode onto the streets. You'll see massive riots in major American cities this summer. And I'm not talking about protests that boil over. I'm talking full-blown LA-style riots, deaths and destruction of property. It may be triggered by something unrelated to Trump, but the frenzy will all feed into this collapse narrative. That's where it's heading, and that's where they want it to go. The collapse of the Trump presidency, if it cannot be stopped, will make the collapse of Venezuela look like a walk in the park.
There you go, from Paul Joseph Watson on the breakdown of Trump. Also from InfoWars, they go on a breakdown of this. As Priebus is exposed as the White House leaker. And this was actually a couple of days ago. That's a headline from that article. It's actually a video, which I haven't seen. Sometimes their videos are like an hour and a half long. Investigative journalist Seth Rich sent over 44,000 emails to WikiLeaks. This is the man in the DNC under Hillary Clinton who was working as her staffer, but he was killed.
Well, he was a DNC staff and he was killed last July, yes. July of last year.
Completely killed.
Yeah.
And now they're starting to, at least the alternative media is starting to put out things about him.
So the investigator that was hired by his family is turning up some suspicious information, yes.
There you go. And of course, never being covered up on the mainstream lying media. Fox News now reporting based on multiple investigative sources that Seth Rich, the Democratic National Committee staffer who was gunned down in Northwest D.C. near his home last July, leaked thousands of DNC emails to WikiLeaks in the months beforehand. So he was actually an honorable person, even though he worked for the DNC, because he actually was trying to stop Hillary as a criminal mob boss, crime syndicate lord. According to Fox News' Malia Zimmerman, these new revelations are consistent with the findings of Rod Wheeler, former D.C. homicide detective and Fox News contributor. Wheeler told Fox 5 DC that there is evidence on Rich's laptop that confirms he was emailing WikiLeaks prior to his death. Wheeler's law enforcement sources also allegedly claim they were told to stand down on investigating the crime. It's interesting how all these stand-down orders were coming from Obama. Isn't that interesting? We kind of see a lot of stand-down orders.
There is obstruction of justice.
that's real.
What, obstruction of
but
justice?
That's just the way that's just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday operating procedure for the deep state. Rich's family, however, has denounced Wheeler's claims in a statement calling them unsubstantiated. Via Fox News, a federal investigator who reviewed an FBI forensic report generated within 96 hours after DNC staffer Seth Rich's murder detailing the contents Rich's computer said he made contact with WikiLeaks through Gavin McFadden, a now deceased American investigative reporter, documentary filmmaker, and director of WikiLeaks, who was living in London at the time. I've seen and read the emails between Seth Rich and WikiLeaks, the federal investigator told Fox News, confirming that the McFadden connection. He said the emails are in possession of the FBI, while the stalled case is in the hands of the Washington Police Department. Fragmented departments trying to and allowing themselves to stall and say, oh, it's in the hand of that department, oh, it's in the hand of that department, oh, endlessly stalling. The revelation is consistent with the findings of Rod Wheeler, a former DC homicide detective and Fox News contributor, and whose private investigation firm was hired by a third party on behalf of Rich's family to probe the case, which was shot from behind in the wee hours, but was not robbed. Clear assassination. Boom. My investigation up to this point shows there was some degree of email exchange between Seth Rich and WikiLeaks, Wheeler said. I do believe that the answers to who murdered Seth Rich sits on his computer on a shelf at the DC Police or FBI headquarters. The federal investigator who requested anonymity said 44,053 emails and 17,761 attachments between DNC leaders spanning from January 2015 through late May 2016 were transferred from Rich to McFadden before May 21st. Rich left Lou's City Bar a couple miles from his home at about 1:15 a.m. on July 10th. His immediate activities after leaving the bar remain a mystery. He walked home calling several people along the way. He called his father, Joel Rich, who he missed because he had gone to sleep. He talked with a fraternity brother and his girlfriend, Kelsey Mulca. Around 4:17 a.m., Rich was about a block from his home when Mulca, still on the phone with him, heard voices in the background. Rich reassured her that he was steps away from being at his front door and hung up. 2 minutes later, Rich was shot twice. Police were on the scene within 3 minutes. Rich sustained bruising on his hands and face. He remained conscious but died at a nearby hospital less than 2 hours later. Police detectives will not say whether Rich provided them with any clues about the identity of his attackers or their motivation, Wheeler said, as they're told to stand down. Grainy videotape from a security camera outside a grocery mart shows two assailants shooting Rich twice in the back. They did not take his wallet, cell phone, keys, watch, or necklace worth about $2,000. On July 22nd, just 12 days after Rich was murdered, WikiLeaks published emails that prompted the resignation of Debbie Wasserman Schultz from her role as DNC chairperson on the eve of the DNC convention. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange had insisted all along that the DNC emails were not hacked by the Russians, and he has implied that Rich was indeed the source of the emails. On August 9th, WikiLeaks offered $20,000 reward for information on the murdered DNC staffer. Again, people don't realize you're dealing with literal mafia, literal crime syndicates.
Yeah.
The DNC is a crime syndicate. When it was run by Obama, Hillary Clinton, you name it, they're run by criminal bosses. Assange told a Dutch reporter last August, our sources take risks, and they become concerned to see things occurring like that. Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us a material, and often very significant risks. As a 27-year-old works for the DNC, was shot in the back, murdered just a few weeks ago for no unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. Fox News reports that law enforcement sources close to the investigation, say the police have, quote, no suspects and no substantial leads as to who the killer or killers may be. Metropolitan Police, including the police chief, has refused to discuss the case, despite requests from Fox News dating back 10 months. The department released a statement on the case saying it remains an active investigation and that detectives are working with Richard's family. Sure, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are 10 months into it. If there are any individuals who feel they have information, we urge them to call us at 202-727-9099 or text us at 50411. Read the statement. The department is offering a reward of up to $25,000 for information on this case that leads to the arrest and conviction of the persons or person responsible. Isn't it funny that the detectives and the law enforcement who are on this case in the FBI say, oh yes, we're working very closely with Rich's family. Yet Rich's family is hiring another attorney to get into the case because obviously they're not working with Rich's family. I mean, give me a break. It's so ridiculous. The FBI's national office declined to comment, but but sources said the Bureau provided cyber expertise to examine Rich's computer. Wheeler believes powerful forces are preventing the case from a thorough investigation. Duh. My investigation shows someone with the D.C. government, Democratic National Committee, or Clinton team is blocking the murder investigation from going forward, Wheeler said to Fox News. That is unfortunate. Seth Rich's murder is unsolved as a result of that. Rich's family released a statement blasting Rod Wheeler. The statement says he was not authorized to speak to the press about the investigation and characterized his findings as unsubstantiated claims. As we've seen through the past year of unsubstantiated claims, we see no facts, we have seen no evidence, we have been approached with no emails, and only learn about this when contacted by the press. A spokesperson said, even if tomorrow an email was found, it is not a high enough bar of evidence to prove interactions, as emails can be altered, and we've seen that those interested in pushing conspiracies will stop at nothing to do so. We are a family who's committed to facts, not fake evidence that surfaces every few months to fill the void, the voice and strict law enforcement of the general public from finding Seth's murderers. The statement continued. The services of the private investigator who spoke to the press was offered to the Rich family, paid for by a third party, and contractually was barred from speaking to press or anyone outside of law enforcement or the family unless explicitly authorized by the family.
Here's something for the special prosecutor.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
This is something they should be investigating. The murder of a DNC staffer who was in communication with WikiLeaks, over 44,000 emails.
Yeah, alternate theory of how these things were leaked. So maybe it wasn't the Russians. Maybe it was just a DNC staffer. The special prosecutor should definitely investigate this.
They should, but they don't care. All they want to draw out their time, steal more taxpayer money, and feed their stupid lawyer army. They're just so pathetic, such pathetic losers and deceivers in Washington. Mm-hmm. It's so sad to see. We'll be right back after this short break. So sad to see. Oh.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report this Thursday, May 18th, 2017. I'm your host, Sean Moon, the second king of Chanuguk. Let's go first to Tim for a wonderful report on medicinal plants. Go ahead, Tim.
So, Yahoo News reports that, no, this is AFP, I'm sorry, but it's carried on Yahoo. More than 28,000 species of plants around the world have a medical use, but poor documentation means people are not making the most of the health benefits, according to a survey released on Thursday.
Boom, nice.
Britain's Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew in London recorded 28,187 species in its latest annual survey and said it was probably a very conservative figure. New plants discovered over the past year include 9 species of a climbing vine used in the treatment of Parkinson's disease, the survey found. The report is highlighting the huge potential that there is for plants in areas like diabetes and malaria, said Monique Simmons, Deputy Director of Science at the world-famous Botanical Group. The report said 2 plants, artemisinin and quinine, are among the most important weapons against malaria, which killed over 400,000 people in 2015. Despite their potential, just 16% of the plants Kew recorded as being for medical use are cited in regulatory publications. Kew's expansive gardens in West London and vast botanical collections containing over 8.5 million items are listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The institution's second annual State of the World's Plants report, that's the title of the report, State of the World's Plants, involved 128 scientists from 12 countries who since the first survey have discovered 1,730 new plant species. They include 5 new species of manihot found in Brazil, 7 new Aspalathus plants used for making South American rooibos tea, and a new parsnip species uncovered in Turkey. Risks from globalization, subtitle. The report also traced the destruction of plants. So that was the end of the part that deals with the medicinal effects. That's really great. The King has been teaching us, about the pharmacy in the woods.
Yes.
You don't have to go to CVS or to Rite Aid. You can just go into the woods, and you can find. He's taught us some things that work for headaches and for warts. One of the plants that he pointed out cured my wart right away. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
That was milkweed.
Milkweed.
That is a traditional medicinal for warts. And the milkweed plant produces a slight toxin, okay, which was used traditionally by the native peoples. Look, they call it alternative medicine. This is the tradition of medicine compared to the modern pharmaceutical medicine of medicinal herbs is like 99.999% of human history. You don't just get to throw that out in the basket because you've got some pharmaceutical companies that want to make huge market prices, huge profits off their state-run Obamacare, forcing people to get pharmacologically injected. Give me a break. I mean, in certain states, they're literally trying to push, if you are diagnosed with this ailment, you must get this vaccine. You can't even explore alternative medicine. You can't explore ancient medicine, which has been used for thousands of years, with thousands and millions of people that have used it. Give me a break. There's, I heard it said, and of course, the medicines that are made in the wild are used differently than medicines that we're used to in the pills and stuff like this, because medicines in the wild have to be used over the period of the day. So, for example, if you make a decoction of willow bark, which is basically an aspirin, and or black birch, which also contains the same active ingredient for aspirin, you would not just consume that one time as a tea and think that it's going to work like aspirin. It's a much lower dose. So what you would have to do is you have to drink it as a tea 5-6 times a day until that symptom then starts fading away, and your immune system slowly can become turned on and given energy to do its immunofunction. Okay, so it's used in a different way, but medicinals, I mean, it's been said that medicinals can cure about 90% of ailments or more that people go in for the doctor's office for checkups. 90% of the ailments are usually colds, light immunofunction, diseases, flus, sinus, some issues, whatever. Much more, they're not life-threatening. Now there are some times when there's immediate traumatic damage to the physical body, where you have gaping wounds and huge cuts and lacerations, where you need to have immediate stitching, or you need to close that wound, okay? So medicinal herbs don't work in that sense. Or you can, for example, hemostatic agents that are used in combat, when you make any person who carries a concealed carry weapon should also have a mini trauma kit with a hemostatic agent and at least a tourniquet on your person. So for example, on my pant system, I have a set of black nitrile gloves, which are medical use gloves, as well as I have a tourniquet. It's called a RATS tourniquet, very lightweight, very small tourniquet. And I have combat gauze, which is a hemostatic agent, just in case I get shot. Or you have a negligent discharge and you shoot yourself, basically, you're able to pack that wound and stop the bleeding and prevent your death. what is the statistic? But anyways, most soldiers die by blood loss in warfare, or at least a huge percentage. Maybe not most, but a huge percentage of soldiers who inflict traumatic wounds or receive traumatic wounds die by blood loss. So it is important to have that modern technology in those emergency scenarios. But in the 90% of the cases where people go and see a doctor, which is very light, minor ailments, those things can be treated and worked on by medicinal herbs. And it is such a wonderful, wonderful tradition. The nutraceutical industry is now growing, skyrocketing. InfoWars has very good products. Garden of Life has excellent products, things like that. But a very wonderful article. Thank you, Tim, for that report. South Korean President Moon, high possibility of military conflict with North Korea, he says. Moon Jae-in, the new president of South Korea, campaigned on renewing dialogue with North Korea and adopting a less confrontational stance than his impeached predecessor Park Geun-hye. He also clearly gave the impression he would be less confrontational than the United States has been of late. However, on Wednesday, President Moon said there is a high possibility of military conflict with North Korea. North Korea launched a missile 4 days ago and claimed to have succeeded in launching an intermediate-range ballistic missile, Moon said, speaking at the South Korean Defense Ministry. Launching ballistic missiles is a serious provocation that violates UN Security Council resolutions, as well as being a serious challenge to global peace and stability. We will never tolerate such North Korean provocations and nuclear threats. Now, coming from a leftist president, that really means nothing.
Yeah, he's going to, if you ask him, okay, what is the cause of that high probability, he's going to say the United States.
Yeah, and even if you say, okay, Obama said he would draw a line in the sand, remember that? Mm-hmm. And then he just let ISIS go, he funded ISIS, he actually gave them weapons. Give me a break, these leftists. They just do the talking points. Mm-hmm. They never act. He promised to sternly deal with the North. Oh yes, of course, we promise, we believe that, together with the international community. Moon made his comments hours after his government restated its desire to resume dialogue with North Korea, and 3 days after North Korea's latest provocative missile test. Of course, he has to ramp up the perceived threat in the Korean psyche of the danger of North Korea. So then he can swoop in as a savior and say, I've now negotiated with them, and now, folks, we don't have to go to war. See?
Yes, now we can remove that missile defense system.
Yes, and it was, yeah, right, now we can remove that. Yes. Now we can open our borders.
Yes.
Now we can merge our militaries, as he proposed in his, under Nomuyan. I mean, this is the lunatic. He is playing the politics, so he wants to say, everybody, look how great of a job I'm doing. I brought peace. We almost went to war. We almost went to war with the North. But I brought peace, and now let's get rid of our THAAD system. We really don't need it. We're now at peace. Don't worry, South Koreans. No more threat. We're just going to let the North Koreans take over our military. Mm-hmm. We're just going to let them take over our foreign policy. We're just going to let them slowly take over. But don't worry. You'll just be fine. Keep going to, going to your Paris Baguette and keep having your little cakes and coffee. Don't worry what we do with politics. Don't worry. It's all good. It's no problem, even though the economy is being destroyed, even though they're going to be colluding more with China, even though they're going to be trying to bring and merge South Korea into the APU, Asia Pacific Union, and steal their sovereignty. Don't worry about any of that. Anybody who says that is conspiracy theorists. They're crazy. Just look what happened to the EU. Isn't the EU wonderful? It's so successful and so great. It's so united. There's no problems in the EU. There you go. Moon made his... Okay, there seems to be a convergence of opinion between the Moon administration and the United States, since Moon has qualified his call for moderation toward North Korea by asking for some concessions from Pyongyang to get talks restarted. The U.S. has said North Korea must abandon its nuclear weapons program entirely. Moon said North Korea must change its attitude of insisting on pressing ahead with its arms development before dialogue is possible. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley put the American position in forceful terms on Tuesday. We have to turn around and tell the entire international community, you either support North Korea or you support us. The United States is not past looking at their country entities who are helping North Korea and putting sanctions against them. If you're supporting North Korea, you're against the rest of the international community, said Haley as the UN debated its response to the latest North Korean missile launch. All they do is debate and do nothing but support and cover for totalitarians. Haley said the U.S. was still working on persuading China and Russia to support stronger sanctions against North Korea, to which end she pointedly reminded Russia that the North's latest missile test had reached close to Russia's border. Russia nevertheless seems determined to protect North Korea, as President Russian President Vladimir Putin insisted that intimidating Pyongyang was unacceptable. For their part, the North Koreans showed little sign of giving President Moon the change in attitude he's looking for. The North ignored international condemnation of its missile tests, which demonstrated some disturbing advances on long-range missile technology, and insisted it would conduct ICBM tests anytime and anywhere in accordance with the decisions made by our central leadership. Another development that may complicate Moon's plans for a renewed dialogue with North Korea is a massive cybercrime attack against computer systems across the world this weekend. Evidence has been found implicating hackers linked to North Korea in the attack. On Tuesday, the New York Times quoted cybersecurity experts who described these hackers as a type of sleeper cell planted in various Asian nations in what amounts to war contingency planning in case the homeland is attacked. Some of these sleeper cells hackers are secure information technology jobs abroad, have secured information technology jobs abroad after receiving advanced computer training at Russian, Chinese, and Indian schools. New York Times sources speculated the WannaCry ransomware attack may have been timed to coincide with the last weekend's missile launch as a demonstration of North Korean power, or possibly even as a pushback against China, which has been applying an extraordinary amount of pressure against its client state in Pyongyang of late. South Korean Yonhap News notes that Moon had promised to increase South Korea's defense budget from current 2.4% of GDP to 3%. In his remarks about North Korea on Wednesday, Moon stressed the importance of having defense that is not only in words but in real capability. There you go, folks.
Many of his aides actually belong to the so-called Juche ideology faction. These are people who believe that South Korea would be better under North Korea's Juche ideology than they are under a liberal democracy.
Now, these are people he just put in recently, too.
Yes.
I mean, this is outrageous. He's openly putting people who are supporting Juche ideology.
Yes. So these words about defense and North Korea's changed attitude.
Oh, yeah, right.
They're all empty words.
There you go, folks. Rahm Emanuel, Democrats come off and can come off as party disdainful of the middle class. No, you think, Mr. Elitist? You think so? All the elitists that hate the middle class, always trying to destroy the middle class by centralizing government and tax farming the middle class and using them as a trope to victimize the poor and to keep the poor and keep them in the minority ghettos that they control by their minority slave handlers. Give me a break. During an interview with Politico, Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel stated the Democrats come off and can come off as a party disdainful of the middle class. That's because they are a party disdainful of the middle class. Emanuel said, I think, don't we talk about and fight for the middle class like we are? We believe we are for them, but they don't. If they don't hear we're for them, then we've got a problem because we're not going to convince them that they're wrong. No, the Democratic Party has never been for the middle class. They've been always the party of the elitists and the centralized globalists. They are always against the middle class. Why? Because the enemy of the super elite are the middle class. They don't want you to make $70,000, $80,000, and $90,000 being a blue-collar worker. They don't want the nation's status and the nation's wealth to be that prosperous that if you just work hard, you can make $100,000 or more. They don't want that because then you could actually enjoy your life and you could actually have fun and sovereignty and buy land and own land and have weapons. They don't want that because then you would be a threat to their total domination. You wouldn't need them, see? You wouldn't need them. You wouldn't need them for your little government bailouts. You wouldn't need them for your little government welfare check. You wouldn't need them to be the little totalitarians that they are, to steal from people and tax farm people to give to you. You wouldn't need them. Because you, on your own effort and your own honor, could you work a regular job and make $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year. That kind of booming middle class is fantastic. You could own multiple cars, a boat. You could have a house. You could have leisure activities, spending money. You could have disposable income that you could take your kids to restaurants and movies. I mean, you could enjoy life. And you wouldn't need the elites perching on top of you, giving you little paychecks of welfare checks of $300 to keep you in line. You would have to beg for a gallon of milk like in Venezuela and sleep with some pimp and some gang and have sex with them so you can get a gallon of milk for your family because they're starving to death under the communist regime. This is outrageous. The Democratic Party has always been against the middle class, always exploiting the middle class, always promising people who want to use, who are professional self-victimization professionals, want to use other people's money for themselves and use the tax taxpayer money and the force and coercion of government, which is not reason, is not eloquence, it is force, as George Washington so eloquently said. To steal from other people, to take from other people, to engage in robbery and theft.
And this is the mayor of Chicago, where it has so many murders and people are not allowed to defend themselves. Of course, middle class wants to be
These
able to defend
Democrats
themselves.
are so ridiculous. And of course, these Republican idiots are also despicable as well. Republican lawmakers fight over who floated Trump impeachment first. There you go. Video also on Turkish president's bodyguard attacking protesters during the D.C. visit. D.C. police chief said diplomatic immunity could halt charges against Turkish security personnel who assaulted protesters in the D.C. visit. There you go. Also, in the news starting the Seth Richard murder case, info suggests D.C. police DNC collusion. Sheriff David Clark joins Trump's DHS as assistant secretary. Wow! Conservative black superstar gets key role in fight against globalism. Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome. Sheriff David Clark is a tremendous man, gentleman, and defender of sovereignty and freedom. Nationally renowned law enforcement official Sheriff David Clark will be joining the Trump administration as an assistant secretary in the Department of Homeland Security. Clark made the announcement on the Vicki McKenna Show, a conservative talk radio program out of Wisconsin. There we go. Awesome. He is excellent. He is absolutely excellent. There's video of him saying that we're going to see a Second Amendment revolution. He spoke at the NRA show this year. A tremendous patriot, a tremendous man of God, and one who stands for sovereignty against all the other slave owner prostitutes that try to pressure all minorities to have to vote leftist. Colonel Schaefer forces truth into the mainstream media. The deep state's war against President Trump brought to light by Colonel Schaefer. Soros could crash the U.S. dollar by pushing Trump impeachment. The dollar already falling from turmoil fueled by Soros, who previously crashed the British pound. Globalist George Soros, who made billions breaking the British pound, can profit immensely by fueling turmoil against President Trump, which leads to a weakened U.S. dollar he can then bet against and potentially crash. In 1992, Soros pocketed over $1 billion by betting against and destroying the Great Britain's monetary system, and appears history is now repeating itself as the U.S. dollar loses ground amid the recent attacks against Trump, which Soros has fueled. The focus on these severe scandals means the administration cannot promote the agenda that markets are longing for: tax cuts, infrastructure, and deregulation. During this period, we can expect the dollar to continue struggling, reported Forex Crunch. Markets hate uncertainty. Any kind of fiscal stimulus will be stuck, and the greenback could continue undoing the late 2016 rally. Just look at Drudge Report from this morning. The mainstream media, which is consistently aligning with Soros' own interests, is relentlessly attacking Trump, and now the U.S. economy is plunging as a result. Dow down negative 250. The dollar sank Wednesday with a fresh crisis in the White House, fueling concerns with that Donald Trump's economy boosting agenda could be run off track. Soros' stock market moves runs lockstep with his political activities, so it's likely he has already betted against the dollar in anticipation of this morning's headlines. There you go. Soros, again, capitalizing on the fuel that he creates and the crises that he creates. And as we saw in Watson's video, Al Green calls for impeachment of Donald Trump in the U.S. Congress. Folks, it is such an exciting and intense time to be alive, and there is so much insanity going all around us. We must continue our prayers for our president, for sovereignty, and know with confidence that the kingdom is coming. Kingdom is united. The kingship of God is united. People are waking up. People are coming back under Father's authority in repentance. And on the macrocosm, there are many, many battles, but Trump is trying to press forward. Pray for his safety. We pray for his family. We pray for his success and victory against globalism and centralized political Satanism and the Davos and Bilderberg Group, etc. Also pray for our brothers and sisters in Korea and Japan who are praying for us as well, struggling there to survive in the imminent and the almost perpetual imminent state of potential war with North Korea and the destabilized situation there. Please pray for them as well. Keep them in your hearts and prayers today. Thank you for joining us today, Thursday, May 18th, 2017, on the King's Report. We'll see you tomorrow, 5 a.m. sharp, on the King's Report. God bless, Godspeed, and may his kingdom come. We'll see you tomorrow.
Roger.
Bless you.
Thank you.